Yay.
Oh, don't say that. Then I'll say boobies.
There's no better way to start the show. Hey, by the way, this is episode 50 of our podcast.
Congratulations, guys.
So honored to be
you guys
here
have
for
made a shit show 50 times.
Episodes. I think we started
you're one
the
of
first week of March last year.
Nice.
And so we're getting close to wrapping up that first full year, which is awesome. So it's a pretty good way to wrap up episode 50 with episode 50 to our final recap. I promised this time. Last time I said final, but I was lying. Our final game of the year retrospective where we rank some of our favorite games. And this time we're going to be talking about overall games. We'll get to that in a minute. We want to give our buddy Kyle a few minutes to join, but we do have Jeff, Derek, and Dan here. Good evening, gentlemen.
So what you're saying is we're the ground zero podcast-wise of COVID.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
If you could start telling people that to get more listeners, that'd be great.
Patient zero.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. So we'll go over that stuff. But there are some headlines that I thought would be interesting to cover. We haven't. Last week we jumped right into ranking lists. We didn't talk about anything going on in the industry.
Was there anything
but there's
going
some.
on?
There wasn't a lot. We could have covered a few things, but nothing really worth taking any time. But this week there have been some things that I want to call out.
Ooh.
The first one is really, honestly, just for me and Derek. Let's be honest, and that is that EA has teased the return of NCAA football games.
Yeah.
Don't exactly know what or
fun.
when or all those things. We can assume they're not going to have player likenesses, but if they do what they've done with past games, the last one was released in 2013, then you'll be able to update rosters, which means you'll be able to share rosters. So there'll be some people online who are great at this. They're okay with spending multiple days putting real player names and stats in there. And so I will find who that person is, and I'll download their roster, and I'll upload it to mine. I'm so excited. I love football, but NCAA football, that's where it's at. So I've still been playing NCAA 14 pretty regularly every year. So.
Why even call it NCAA football, though, if it's not going to actually be the NCAA?
It will be, and it'll be the teams. It just won't be any of the players because they can't. I don't think they've got compensation for players worked out. I don't think. That's what we're still waiting on, all those details. What's that going to look like? That's just our assumption based off of.
I don't know. They've gone this long without compensating players, so.
Yeah.
But I think that's why they stopped, is because it kind of to the surface and they couldn't keep making it.
No, I mean the NCAA. I mean, I assume the money they'll expect NCAA or whatever organization to, trickle down that money to the players, and I don't think the NCAA themselves will allow that.
Of course they don't. No, of course they. It'd be cool, and I think Derek, you and I talked about this. If they told every player, if you'll sign this agreement to use your likeness in this year's version of the game, you'll get a free copy of the game.
Yep.
Like, honestly, most of the players would be like, totally. Like, pick
Especially
which
the ones that aren't going to go to the NFL or anything. They'd be
but
like,
there are a few who, the marquee players, the stars from Alabama and Ohio State, whoever else, they might want more. Maybe they have to negotiate something. But I think most players would be like some offensive lineman from Oklahoma State or whatever. He will 100% take a free copy of the game to be in the game. So, whatever. That's
got to be a cool, overwhelming thing when you're in college. I mean, I would imagine. So I would be at that age. I'd be like, I don't care.
Back in the day, they didn't use their names. They didn't use their names, but their numbers and likenesses were clearly matched up with real life people. But then they didn't have names. It just said like number 13 or whatever.
And that's how most of the players felt until they got sued. Is that most of them were just happy that they could buy the game and see themselves in it. They were excited to play as them or their friends or something like that. And then
it's the stars who.
Then it was the stars are like, we should be making money off this, and which I totally get. Like when I was younger, and I'm sure most either listeners or anybody that's seen me in the group knows, I hate victims, and I rarely side with insecure victim people. I usually will just hate
victims or people who don't be victims.
I actually hate victims.
Okay, all right.
If you're murdered, I am mad at you.
Okay,
you are
all right.
So dramatic while you're dead.
So you're on the side of the pedophile.
Pretty much. So, anyways.
I do like that
when
Derek called out for saying something a little bit off. He doubles down on it. It's like
that's a very Trump thing to do.
That's what I meant.
No, but like the point is that I don't normally side with, like, for instance, 10 years ago I would have been like, the athletes need to get over it. They don't need to get paid to get free college tuition and stuff like that. And I still agree, they do get a free college tuition, all that stuff. But when you see how big the college business is on football, basketball, any of these sports, and how much the money they make off these kids, I totally get, again, and a lot of this isn't brought up. That's the only reason why I mention it is, yes, you're getting a college tuition. You're also getting a platform to get an opportunity to go to the NFL or to go to the NBA. That really, there are other places you can go, but really college is the main place. Yeah. Until a group of players says, you know what, we're not going to go to college. We're just going to do this D League or something else that will prep us for the NBA or the NFL or something like that. They are using the college just like the college is using them.
They're using the college like a farm program for the most part.
Yes.
Like baseball does.
So they both are using each other. So people need to stop acting like it's just the college is using them. They're not.
I think there's a happy medium, right? Where
that's what I'm
colleges
saying.
could do more
that
for
I've
those
gotten
kids.
older and I'm not like, you're a victim, be grateful. I would say, I believe like for this game, what they should do is they should be like, hey, we're going to pay, I'll use University of Michigan because that's my favorite school. We're going to pay you to allow us to put you in the game. Can you make an agreement with your players that you'll pay them a portion plus we'll give them a free copy of the game or whatever? Like that's the type of agreement that they should have with these schools, is that we'll pay you and then you pay your players.
And it doesn't have to be a ton, man. Give me a flat stipend amount just to be in the game. And I think most would accept that. But anyway, I'm just excited it's coming back in one way, shape, or form. I'm so excited to play a modern version of college football video game. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I would love to see it on the Series X and PS5. And
so since Xbox Game Pass added EA Play, we downloaded Madden 20, which is on there, and we were playing that, and it looks great, even though that's last year's version. That's not the most current one. Still looks great. It plays really well, but I just struggled to get into NFL video games as much as I did college. With college, I love taking that dynasty and recruiting players. And I just love the RPG elements that are in NCAA. That Madden has some of that. I just don't dig it as much. But anyway, I'm pumped for that. Do you guys remember the canceled game 6 Days in Fallujah that Konami was going to publish?
Yes.
Absolutely not.
So that game was canceled in 2009.
Right.
Apparently, the executives at Konami saw whatever was there of the game at that point and were like, "Nope." So I don't know if that's because the quality was bad. My guess is that's not the case. My guess is that the controversy was not good. That's my guess.
Right.
So that game got canned, but that IP has been picked up and it is now back under development by Highwire Games. It's going to be published by Victura, which I've never heard of them as a publisher. But they said it's going to release this year. So they're picking up the pieces of 6 Days in Fallujah. It's about the modern Iraq War in the early 2000s.
It's a military shooter.
It's a military shooter.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even understand why they're like, what's the point? Just make a different shooter and just call it something else.
Idea, man.
I don't even.
Yeah.
Well, probably because if it has any type of, well, for instance, I know we're a little show, we don't matter, but the fact that Tim's even talking about it means it's news. Where if it was a new IP by these people that nobody knows about, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I suppose.
We're talking about it because they bought this IP. So there's some name recognition there.
It's true. Well, hey, listen, on March 12th, Gaston gets his wish, and he will now be able to play Crash Bandicoot 4 on the Nintendo Switch. In addition to, if you want to play it in 60 frames per second, you can play it on your Series S or X or PS5. So Crash is going to hit all the modern
60 frames per second of trash. That's awesome.
It's 60 frames of furry grossness because Gaston furiously masturbates to all of that.
Wow. All right, well, if you set aside that image, which thanks for that, the game itself is charming and fun. Great fit for the Switch. You guys are all mean. Okay.
His background on his computer is a picture of me with my cat.
Yeah.
And he's not looking at me, guys. Like that.
This next thing, I think this is one of those delays that I think is good news, and that's the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake is getting delayed indefinitely. Yeah, I think that's excellent news. Yep. I don't know that they're going to go back
for that.
I don't know that they're going to go back to the drawing board on visuals, but I really hope they do.
Yeah, they just really need to redo. I think the faces. There was something about the faces that was just like, this is like 2 gens ago.
Not quite there. Yeah. It looked like a remaster. It didn't look like a remake.
It just looked like up-resed, and that's it.
Yep. Yeah. And I loved, that game, brings me a lot of like warm and fuzzy memories. I loved when I first played that. It was groundbreaking and exciting and really cool. That was the first time that I really started to get into Ubisoft games. I really loved that take on Prince of Persia. That was the first 3D Prince of Persia that really caught on. And I mean, that's a big, big game in terms of like video game history. So if they're going to remake it, let's do it really well. Don't do, essentially it's a half-assed job what they did. If you saw that trailer and you watch it, you're like, who approved this? Like this isn't, anyway, whatever.
Somebody did.
I would not have had the brass whatever to put remaster in the title of that or whatever, or remake or whatever they called it.
Remake.
Like you didn't look. It didn't look like you remade anything.
Agreed. Totally
like
agree. Well, listen. Right before you start playing Crash, which I know all of you guys are going to do on your Switch, you'll be able to 3 days before that on March 9th, you can play Apex Legends on your Switch. So that's. I think they had announced that's going to come to Switch. They just had never nailed a release date, but now they have. That's March 9th, and it's no shocker here. It's Panic Button that's doing that port. So I feel like they can do anything when it comes to porting games, especially to stuff like the Switch. They do a good job with that. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is out. It's getting some mixed responses from folks. I guess some people were expecting certain things, but overall, I think it's still very positive. And I can tell you from my perspective, I bought it this morning, went and picked it up from Best Buy, and just before recording, played it with 3 of my kids. We played 4-player multiplayer on the couch for about an hour and a half, maybe. And the game is crazy, party fun. Like, it's just good fun. It's. I can already tell you, I'll play it single player to know for sure. I don't think it's going to be up there with my favorite of the Mario games, but it's really, really good. It's really excellent.
Yeah.
I prefer a Mario Odyssey or Mario Galaxy. Those are more my jam.
I mean,
but I do really like this.
They literally made a whole new extra, like, this is not even the newest Mario game. It was the Mario game before Odyssey, and they made like this whole new section of game that didn't exist before. Like they just added extra content and then like are releasing it on the Switch. Like that's crazy.
It is. It's pretty
very
cool.
It's very cool.
It's fun multiplayer, but it is, when you've got, because my daughter just turned 8, so she struggles with kind of like the fast-paced games. She's great at Minecraft and the slower-paced stuff, but when it comes to fast-paced, her older brothers usually leave her in the dust, and so there was a lot of that kind of tearful, wait for me, guys. Like, there's a lot of that going on, But it's really fun. Have you guys tried it? Do you like it?
I played 1 level.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I just need to play it more.
We were playing it on our big screen, by the way, and it looks really nice on the big. It runs smoothly. It looks great.
Yeah.
It's all about that art style. It just looks real clean and crisp. It looks good. Derek, you like it, I'm assuming, because you've played it before.
Yeah, I beat it on the Wii U. I want to say it's the Mario game I had the most fun with. That one and Sunshine. So if I actually replay this through the whole thing, I would probably rank it 1 unless I end up having a terrible time with it. But especially trying to go back to Mario Sunshine with that collection, it's not a terrible game. It's still a fun game, but God, does it control very annoyingly.
I mean, it's the same with Mario 64.
Yeah.
There's no denying its place in history, but when you replay it after playing, I mean, Mario Odyssey kind of ruined most 3D Mario games.
See, and I liked Mario Odyssey, but for some reason, it didn't click with me as much as it did for you guys. Like, I really liked it. I remember it ranking pretty high on my top 10, but and again, it could be nostalgia. I just remember, it's one of the few games I beat on the Wii U. There was not many games that I played on the Wii U all the way through the end, and that was one of them. And Mario games aren't really my thing, so it has to be pretty special if I play through it. And so far, like, I thought I'd buy this just out of nostalgia, like excitement for, like, oh, I like this game, let's just own it. But I booted it up and started playing, and I was like, I'm having fun, like, I actually want to keep playing it. Whereas when I started Mario Sunshine, I was like, I'm not having that much fun, and I didn't continue playing it. I just stopped.
Yeah. I'm almost at the end of Mario Sunshine, and I'm really not. I liked it at first. Some of the water puzzles and stuff they do are cool, but it's worn out its welcome. Like, I don't see any need to really wrap it up.
Is it a long game? Again, it's been like 20 years since I played
it. It is, and it also doesn't have a lot of direction. So, like, a lot of the Mario games, you have a very clear cut, here's my next level. Mario Sunshine does not do a good job of
lost a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't really let you know where to go very clearly, it's just poor game design. Again, it feels like they didn't quite finish it. if they had had more time to work on that game, they could have given the player better guides to where to go next and whatever.
So
That's
thanks a
one
lot,
of them.
Miyamoto.
I wish we would get if they're gonna remake a Mario, that's the one I wish they would have remade. But now that they've released this collection, I really don't think
it's
they're
not
ever
gonna
gonna
happen.
do it.
I just want them to redo stuff like Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and modern day graphics. I'd replay
An
those.
expanded Ocarina of Time would be insane.
Ocarina of Time. Yeah, give me all those Zeldas from the last few gens. The only Microsoft news that jumped out at me was that the Xbox Series S and X outsold for the month of January the PS5 and the Switch in the UK.
Yeah.
That's
What is
actually
that?
that's actually pretty good news because I believe the UK is predominantly a PlayStation.
Usually?
Europe in general, yeah, for sure.
So that is big news, but I just wanted to be misleading because I saw you guys going what for a second there. Yeah. So.
But it's because PlayStation probably doesn't have.
So Sony is actually having some manufacturing issues.
That's what I was going to say. It all depends on.
It's hard to find right now.
So we all know, and we don't need to talk about it anymore. We've talked about it enough. We all know it's hard to find a PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
But like it's still hard to get a Series X, but it's not as hard. I've literally bought 4 now. And I've sold 3 of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I bought 4 of them and sold 3 of them.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, so it's really easy to get a Series X, but they're still selling out, and I still see people complaining about I can't get a Series X. I can't get a Series X. The reason I'm bringing this up is it all comes down to clearly both products are selling out. Who is releasing the most? If Microsoft's releasing the most, then they're obviously outselling the PlayStation 5. If Sony's releasing the most, then they're outselling. So it's whoever's releasing the most. That's the number we don't know. We know they're selling out.
I'm with you. I want to know manufacturing numbers. Like who's actually pumping more of these out of the factories? You know.
I think it's the scalpers hoarding them because that's pretty much what I see the most.
They still count as a sell.
No, I know that.
Scalper's not going to sell it back to.
Yeah, but before they ever hit any kind of retail, online or otherwise, I'm curious how many are actually coming out of their manufacturing factories. Like who has Sony made more? Has Microsoft made more? Are they pretty close? I did hear on the Giant Bombcast they were talking about. I forget the name of this chipset. There's some kind of chipset that the manufacturing is dramatically lower than it's been for a few years, and it's a pretty important component to the PS5. Yeah. And Sony has listed that as one of the major reasons that they can't ramp up production yet, and they want to, but they can't. And it's this one key component. And I believe that. I mean, it's not like they have all the parts and they build them out of trees and rocks. Like they have to order. They have to order different parts from all kinds of different manufacturers. And so I get it. I totally get it. It doesn't take the sting out of how hard it is to get one, and I really want one. So it doesn't take the sting out of it at all. But I understand it at least. And I blame Sasan.
PC master.
Sasan bought one on eBay, and I blame him for buying one for overpriced. I blame Sasan. But you're right.
He actually didn't buy that. His wife forced his hand. He told me the whole story.
That makes me hold him in much higher esteem. That he was forced by his wife to do something. That's great.
How does that man
he's a bigger vagina than we like to admit.
Just like you. No, I'm just kidding.
You know, we need to start titling our episodes this kind of stuff. That's the title of the episode, I think.
The biggest vagina?
Yeah. That'll go over really well. All right. So in some Sony news, of course, Ratchet & Clank has a release date now, which is exciting, June 11th. That is just PS5 only. That's one of the first big, outside of Demon's Souls and Astro's Playroom. There haven't been a ton of PS5 only games. There's been a few, but not a ton. Miles was PS4 as well.
Yeah, I played it on PS4.
So this is one of the first major, since launch at least, one of the first major, you can only play this on PS5 games. So that's pretty exciting. And I know there's others that are coming. I think Returnal is going to be just PS5, I think.
Yep.
I can't.
Yep.
Yeah. That game, I'm sorry, that game does not look good.
It started with the dumb name.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I feel like it's not, like I was looking at gameplay and it does not look smooth to me.
Let me get you guys' thoughts on this before we jump into our ranking. This isn't really video game related, but it's based on a video game. So I'm curious what you think about the new HBO Last of Us series. We don't have to talk about whether or not we think they should make it. I think there's a lot of very opinions. There's varying
Black
opinions on
Stat.
whether or not they should make it. Okay, I get that. But I think we all kind of in our minds had dream casting for this game coming to movie or to TV show. But years ago, we thought certain actresses or actors would be great. Like I always thought Caitlin Dever, who's not super well known, but she kind of got her foot in the door with that Tim Allen sitcom, The Last Man Standing.
Yeah.
And then since then, she's been in some movies. Like she was in
Booksmart.
Booksmart, that Detroit one.
It was just called Detroit.
Detroit, yeah. So anyway, she's really good and very much has the Ellie look.
Mm-hmm. But she's like 30 now. She's
that's what I'm saying. Like we think of those actors like, she got her start like 10 years ago. Well, she's past that age. Anyway, they cast the British actress who played Lyanna Mormont in the Game of Thrones series. She was kind of like young.
When everybody loved when they watched it, yeah.
You're right, because it's all these like big, gruff, evil men, and then she's also one of the lords.
Yeah.
Who's in, and she's she's very confident. I think she's a great little actress. I don't know if that was a one-hit wonder. Other people, our buddy Imran told me that she wasn't great in his Dark Materials, that HBO series.
Yeah, I watched that show. Yeah.
Anyway, all I know is I thought she was good in Game of Thrones. What I saw of her, at least, and I like the idea of casting an up-and-coming actress because if they end up doing multiple seasons of this, you don't want them to look too old too quick.
What baffled me is like, does her face look exactly like Ellie? No, but like you could definitely pass her off as an Ellie. And there was posts in like these groups that are like, she doesn't look like her. I'm like, but you don't have a problem with the Ali guy? That's one that I'm.
You know what? The image that the article that was being
closer.
shared predominantly, that image was not a great like matchup for how she looks like Ellie. If you get some shots of her in Game of Thrones,
like her
costume,
features, like they could make her. That's my point. They could make her look like her.
I mean, does
you
Troy
can't
Baker
make that Ali guy look like Joel? He's just not gonna look.
But I'm
like
saying, does Troy Baker look like Joel? Does Ashley Johnson look like Ellie? No. So like, who cares? Like,
well, that's.
But I'm saying she looks close enough. She looks close enough when you do the makeup and like the hair a certain way.
Yeah,
like,
I think that's what Derek's saying. That she looks close enough. And I think the casting of Pedro Pascal is good. I understand how some people roll their eyes when he gets cast now because it feels like he's in everything. So I get that, but you can't pretend like he's not a good actor. I mean, he was amazing in Narcos. If you haven't watched that Netflix show, he's so good in Narcos. He, of course, I think had a scene-stealing role in Game of Thrones for the short amount of time he was in that. He was so. I mean, he just exudes this kind of confidence.
I hated him though in Wonder Woman. I think
maybe Wonder Woman was not good.
But that's just direction. Yeah, that's just direction.
He was not just just to be clear, it's not just Derek hates the movie, therefore he hates the character. I legit hated his character. I found him to be annoying too.
Yeah, and his character was annoying. I just think
made
his
no sense. I wish to be the Wish Stone. It was stupid. I'm sorry.
That was bad. That was a bad movie.
But that's not. Yeah, again, he was given a script. They're like, this is the character you have to be, and then they're directing him, and they're like, act this way, and he's like, all right. So
the director basically said, act cornier. Yeah.
I wouldn't advise folks to use the Wonder Woman or Mandalorian roles to really gauge if he'll be good at this role or not. He's got other roles that have shown his
Mandalorian's probably pretty close to what you would be with Joel if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, right.
Joel isn't like, hey Ellie, let's talk every 5 seconds. Like he's like, no.
Not to the end of last,
especially in the beginning.
He doesn't want to talk to him. Then he's really chatty. But yeah.
In the second one, he definitely wants to be closer to her and a father figure, and so he wants to have those talks and have the relationship. But the first 85% of the first game, he was like, we don't need to talk.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Oh, for sure.
I think it'll be a while too before we even hit that Last of Us Part 2 story. Yeah. They're going to stretch out so much.
Have they said what they're going to do with this? Is it a prequel? Well, I know that, but is it going to be like a prequel, or is it just going to start where the video?
I think it's fair to say, based on the casting, that it's going to be pretty aligned with the first game. I think it's safe to say that.
Yeah, but I've heard that they're going to add in just a bunch of stuff, maybe even add in some characters and stuff like that to stretch out the content.
Please, yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm okay with. This guy did the guy that's running the show did Chernobyl, and hey,
he knows
if you need
what
something to do, yeah.
Yeah.
If you need somebody to do some tense whatever plague-driven thing, then I think you got the right guy.
I mean, there's obviously gaps because in the second game, for instance, there's there's some stuff that there was some experiences that we didn't see in the first game.
Oh,
Right,
yeah.
there's
For
flashbacks.
example.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I could see them telling some more of, when Last of Us has an amazing and impactful opening, and then there's a huge time jump, and you kind of see Joel as he's already been living in this new post-apocalyptic world for a couple decades. They've got plenty they could tell before that, from Joel's past. But anyway, I think the casting is good. I don't find it helpful to overreact to casting. I think it's interesting. I always find it fun. Like who are they casting for Joker back in the early 2000s? Heath Ledger. Yeah. That's a weird cast.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Of course, as we all know, it turned out just fine. So,
I just want to say this: when the rumor was that Ollie guy, I was against it, not because he can't
Marshmallow,
whatever his name is,
Marshmallow Ollie.
So I was against him because you can say I'm racist, like cool people like to say, "Oh, he's black, so that's why you don't like him." I just want it to be semi-close. That's all I'm saying. Like, you don't have to get somebody who looks exactly like Joel. I understand the performance is what matter, but you can't erase the fact that I played 2 games with Joel, and Joel's my favorite character. So he's the one that I'm going to want the person to be able to act like him and
totally
look kind of like them.
I get it. So, I wouldn't have been upset by it, but I understand.
But I just wanted to say this, so for people that do listen to our show, just so they know the proper context, I would have 100% watched the show even if they casted a black guy or a Mexican guy. I can dislike it and still support it.
Nah.
No burrito.
No. Jeff said, "What about a woman?"
Oh, transgender? Hell yeah!
No, just a woman.
Just a female.
Digging that hole.
I just want to do the trans life, bro.
What if they cast Gina Carano as Joel? All right, let's move on.
You mean Gina?
Let's move on. I still stand by the fact that I think if they had made this a while ago, even now, I think he would work. There's an actor named Anson Mount who already has an awesome name.
Yeah, Hell on Wheels guy. Yeah.
He was on that Hell on Wheels show. He's been in other movies and stuff too. Just he's never really hit the big
Discovery
time.
now, I think. Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah, he's never hit the big time. But dude, when he was rocking that beard on Hell on Wheels, and he had that low gruff voice, and he was very kind of stern and didn't have a lot to say, I was like, dude, he's Joel. Like he already is. It's just like that guy from that pirate show, Black Sails.
Yeah.
And the guy who played Captain Vane, I forget the actor's name off the top of my head, but he would have been a perfect Geralt. Like as I was listening to him talk, he's got the swagger, but also the silent like stare that Geralt has. He would have been perfect, but they cast Henry Cavill, and he friggin' loves video games and loves the Witcher games, and I thought he did a good job. So I don't know. That's why I try not to overreact to the casting stuff, because it could end up being bad, but it's probably not going to be because they picked actor A over actor B.
The bottom line is, if the script is good and whoever's directing it does a good job, just kind of keeps everything reined in and focused, then if they have good actors and actresses, then we should be fine.
They got the director of this Russian movie that came out last year called Beanpole. That's a real movie title.
Sure.
And I watched it because it was highly acclaimed, and it's one of the most depressing things I've ever seen. So I think he's going to fit right in.
Beanpole does sound depressing. So.
Yeah.
It does sound depressing.
Yeah, it does.
There's something that happens like 15 minutes into it, and you're like, "Oh, it's this kind of movie." Okay.
This is what we're doing.
Super sad. All right, cool.
Oh, we're doing this. I get it. I think the most depressing movie I ever saw was probably Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
I haven't seen that yet, but I've heard it's super super sad.
Sounds really not interesting. So please don't tell us all about it, please.
All right, let's get to ranking our top games.
It's a Holocaust movie, Derek. You're so insensitive.
Yeah, don't care.
It's a cancel him.
I only care about the Holocaust when it fits my agenda.
Fantastic movie. Okay. So let's talk about our favorite games from 2020. We've talked a lot about the different categories, which one had the best visuals, best music, best story, best combat, and all those kinds of things. So that's been fun to talk about elements of a game. Now it's just overall. Everything comes back into play. Something that won best combat might not tick all the boxes for everything else, so it might not be at the top for best overall game. You guys get the gist. So the idea is we're going to try to make a case for these being the best overall game. Now, if you want to pick something that maybe struggles in some areas and you just want to pick it because it's so good at one thing, that's fair. That's fine. but you'll have to make a pretty strong case for it. Kyle's not with us, so we're going to be missing out on his insight. Although, just like we did last week when Derek wasn't able to make it, I think we can try to channel some Kyle energy for some of the games that need to be championed. By the
There's
spirit.
only really one that I feel like nobody else will champion that I will.
Yeah,
I would have championed with Kyle.
Yakuza? No.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that'll probably make it on the top, or at least it'll be considered. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's jump right in.
I think it'll get close.
Let me share my screen with you guys.
If I had beat it like he did, I probably would be, champion harder.
All right, let me know when you guys can see the good old spreadsheet here.
I see it.
It's got a good spread.
It's got a good spread.
There's good spread. Spread them.
It's got a good
All right. Hopefully it's zoomed in enough for you to be able to...
Cyberpunk has an 86 on Metacritic? Wow.
It might be updated. I can look that up.
It's actually surprising.
Any of you who've got access to a device, feel free to look these up, because this was from, December, I think I put this list together. So all these numbers could have adjusted slightly.
I don't think it would have changed that much, honestly. Probably a point.
It might be a point up or down, but yeah. All right. The Metacritic score is really just there for either tiebreakers or just some point of reference to remember how well received something was or wasn't. So like F1 2020, I think, should move over immediately, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely.
What even is that? What is that?
Formula racing?
Oh, okay.
Formula
F1 could literally be anything because you just titled it F1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
people
Formula One,
like
okay.
Games like those games, I guess.
Yeah.
F1 stands for delete 2020.
I'm gonna move Hades over to get us started. I think Hades needs to be considered for best game.
Definitely, dude. One of my favorites. Yeah. Hit it.
Derek, we really
liar.
missed you last week, man.
Tim just totally games media'd this right off the bat.
We really missed you.
Has to be Hades.
Half-Life Alex.
Did anyone play Half-Life Alex at all?
No.
I came really, really close to buying it, and I've heard nothing but good things about it, but unfortunately, I have not.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be up there if at least one of us had played it. It's hard to put it on there. I can only do secondhand knowledge on this game, so
it would be
it's
more
great.
of like Kyle would be the person that I would trust, because even if I bought it, I just don't care about VR. Like I need to stop buying VR headsets because I just don't care about them.
Yeah,
they're great for porn. That's it. Just kidding. No, I'm not. I'm not kidding.
I'm kidding, but also not.
Someday.
I think
my
Ori,
kids are listening. I do not use it for that.
I'm gonna move Ori and the Will of the Wisps over
they don't
to be considered. I'm just gonna start moving some of these top-ranked games over just to kind of jump ahead here. So Last of Us.
I'm gonna let you do it because I just want to watch what you do and see.
I'm gonna move Crusader Kings.
Come on, get out of here.
Over, but
like there's something stupid right there. What are you doing?
So Microsoft Flight Simulator has been talked about enough on our series of shows. I'm going to skip it unless someone's really upset that I skipped it. I understand.
No, it's fine. I'm completely
upset.
horrible at the game, and there is a barrier.
Since Kyle's not here, Animal Crossing is not coming over.
We're moving it over. Sorry.
Nope.
Oh my god.
Because Dan liked it, but also
I don't
we
care.
at least
Dan
need
doesn't
we
count.
at least
Dan
need to
gets
acknowledge
like a half a vote.
Does Dreams come over to be considered for this?
No.
It's in my top 10 personally, but I mean,
No.
I get if you guys don't end up putting it there.
I'm
Yakuza,
totally
yes.
ignoring everything Derek says. This is so fun.
All
right. Doom Eternal. Is it one of the best overall games of the year?
It has to be
I
considered.
mean, I know it's not gonna rank high on our list, but you can still bring it over just to pretend.
I miss our balanced and mature discussions we had last episode.
What are you
Final
trying to say,
Fantasy 7. Bringing that one over.
I wish you guys played Hunt Down, man. That would have moved over for you guys for sure. If you
It does
played.
look fun, but
It does look fun. I mean, if you want us to move it over, you want to make a case for it.
There's just no point.
I just thought, honestly, for me, it would be something that's fun, but it wouldn't be like a top 10 game for me, probably. So
I watched some videos on it. I like that YouTube channel Switch Up, and they love the Hunt Down, and they talk about.
Are we doing our top 10 too? Like
yeah, you can share
like
your
our
personal top 10.
Okay.
Do that. Yeah, well, we can have those ready for the end.
we'll do that instead of top RPGs.
Yeah, we can do that. Grindstone is also an excellent game. Technically came out on Apple Arcade in 2019, so I won't fight for it, but I do recommend it for folks who have a Switch or a phone.
I want Cyberpunk moved over.
Cyberpunk needs to come over. Jeff, what about Call of Duty, or if anyone else happened to play it?
I just
One of
don't.
the 10 best?
I wouldn't even argue for it to be in the 10 though, because there's just other games that I would prefer to be in the 10. Honestly.
We'll bring 13 Sentinels over for But I think it's going to be the same thing that happened with some of our other categories for it. I didn't get far enough into it, and the gameplay is too weak for me to really say it's one of the best.
Valhalla for me.
Valhalla for me too. That's pretty high on my list.
Neo 2.
More like Valkrappa. Am I right?
Gotta bring Crash Bandicoot 4 over to be talked about. I'm excited about that.
Oh my god.
Yeah, okay. Somebody's trying to appease one of our fans, our only fan.
Hey,
talk about Crash.
If he stops listening, Derek, it's all over.
It's a
Wink,
good
wink.
game.
You know, I will say this. Gaston is probably one of the coolest people in our group, though.
Yeah.
Like, is he weird and crazy? 100%. And if he gets
But
offended
so-
by that, then he's a baby. But he's one of the coolest because he can take a joke. Like, I literally rip on him nonstop and his games, and he just laughs at me.
That's because he doesn't take it so seriously. Oh, you don't like what I like? You hurt my feelings. Now I must yell at you. He doesn't do that. And I love that.
I feel like we've molded him into a certain type of echelon of person.
He's our created. He's our
We've created him because
Yeah.
we have the technology. So
Gaston's not a real human being. He's a cyborg created by our podcast. Genshin Impact, is it one of the best 10?
no.
No.
Okay, but it is good.
Resident Evil
especially for free.
3, I would like moved over, though.
Spiritfarer needs
Yes,
to come over.
Spiritfarer. Yes.
Yeah. So good.
Can we go
Don't
ahead
care.
and just
Don't care what you say, Derek. Don't care.
highlight all the indies and move them over for Derek?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just highlight each of them. Derek and Dan, what about Astro's Playroom? One of the 10
It's
best.
fun, but I wouldn't say a top 10
No.
contender. No.
What are we, Fab? No.
Ghost of
Sush. Get that
There's-
sush over there.
Is that still at 83? Can someone look that up? Is that still 83? That might have gone higher.
I will look that up because you know what? I know people are like, reviews are just opinions. That one's so off. Like, I know 83 is good, but that's so off. I don't get why people pick that game apart.
It's
to
maybe
even get it
because
down to an
maybe
83.
because, like I said last week, the story, while good, is not most amazing thing ever. Sorry.
Yeah, it's
All
really good. It's better than that.
It's
Better than giving
83.
it credit for.
The story is pretty good. I mean, it's been done before.
Guys,
but
I said pretty good,
No one
but it's
hasn't.
not the most amazing thing ever.
Tim,
Liar.
I'm just gonna hurt you real bad.
Yeah, it's still an 83.
All right.
Jerks. That's
But
racist.
let me ask you this, guys, before you move on to your next game.
Yeah.
Can you really take somebody, and this isn't a user, this is a legit site, sites that would give it a 50 out of 100? Seriously. Like, how do you
That's
even get
tough.
to
I
that
don't
point that it's a 50 out of 100?
Because you have the people that are just so like, I don't know what the word is, but they're like, oh, it's generic because open. Like they just like they throw it into, they pigeonhole it into something because it's open world.
Yeah.
So that it's like, well, because it's open world, you can't have a focused story like a Last of Us, so to speak, because you're focusing on all this extra stuff, And it's like,
Yeah,
the
somebody gave it a
criticism on the-
50, and then like eight review sites gave it a 60. Anything above 70, I guess I can accept like the 70s, but anything below a 70, I
feel
don't
the same way about The Last of Us Part 2, where it's like, if you're giving it below a 70, then you have a personal vendetta against something going on with the game, a publisher or something.
Transgender.
I feel the same thing about a lot of the high quality games. I'm going to move Immortals over. I've played it a little bit more since we last talked about it, not a ton more, but my opinion of it is still that, hey, this is a great game. Is it one of my top 10 favorites? Not yet. I haven't played it enough for it to squeak
I
into
have
the
a
top
feeling
10.
it's gonna be that game that I get to late,
Yeah, me too.
so I can't.
I might play it
support
this summer. It
now
feels like
as
maybe a
much,
summer game. I don't know.
and I'm gonna be like, guys, this game should have been higher on our game of the year.
Pathless.
Pathless is cool.
Pathless.
It's on sale. I almost bought it, and then I didn't.
can we put Under Night in Birth EXE late? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's
I just want
totally.
someone to try to
God.
read it. Yeah, very good.
CL-R.
Stuff
Clear.
like Call of the Sea and Fall Guys were both good, but I don't know if anyone wants to fight. I don't want to fight for
Nope.
them on the top 10.
What, Fall Guys?
Call to Sea is way better than Fall Guys. Let's just be clear about that.
Yeah,
but,
Call of the Sea is. But
I mean, they're two different games, right?
yes,
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
But Fall
Call of
Guys,
Sea's terrible.
so they're the same score though. That's why I say that. But Fall Guys, it was like a cultural thing. Everybody was playing it. So good for that
Agreed.
game.
Fall Guys makes me want to punch babies. I'm just saying that right now.
I want to punch
Gears
babies regardless
Gears
of the game.
Tactics needs to be talked about at least, but it's not going
I'm
to
in.
make I'll just move it
Pedestrian. That's the only game I played. I'm the only one that played that game, but that game rules.
That's coming to PS4 and PS5
You guys
soon,
will
right?
see soon.
It's out
yes.
already, yeah.
Oh,
What
it's
is
out.
it?
Right.
I think so.
What is it? This is your time to talk about. What is the Pedestrian again?
Oh, I don't know if you guys are going to be down for a puzzle game, but it is a puzzle game.
I'm out.
All right.
They showed it during the PlayStation 5 showcase thing.
Kind of a side-scrolling kind
You
of.
play
thing, right?
you play like the Walking Man in like the street signs.
Walking and puzzles. My favorite
Yeah,
kind of game.
and you're going from street sign to street sign, like moving. The way that it's drawn is so.
You're moving like elements together.
Aren't
to
the
go from one
visuals
section to
really
another.
realistic looking, and you move
Yeah.
around?
You're doing it like in the real world, and then there's a part at the end where the last puzzle is so insanely hard.
Did you guys ever like? I was never really big into art or drawing, but I did sometimes like to doodle and make little funny stickman stories or whatever, especially during really boring classes. And I remember I used to do stuff like that where my stickman would travel across different books and like onto the desk and all that. I always thought that was kind of fun and funny, and so this game just reminds
it's
me
cool
of
concept for the game. And then there's some puzzles where you have to like move the signs around while others are stuck, and you have to you really have to use your good old brain. So it's not for Derek.
the old noggin.
Nope.
Paper Mario.
Completely
Anybody?
okay being a mindless racist.
Paper Mario.
Well, you heard it here first. Or not
Paper
really.
Mario.
Stop saying
I'm
Paper
trying
Mario.
to keep this going.
No, Paper Mario.
anybody?
No, Paper Mario
Yeah.
doesn't deserve it.
Okay.
I'd rather put Squadrons in there than Paper Mario, and if I'm honest.
Squadrons was really cool.
Yeah.
It's like a top 15 game for me, I think. Squadrons.
Yeah, it's
So,
up there for me. Yeah.
let's see here. We're getting down into the 70s.
I love Haven, but I don't know how.
So we're getting into my area where Godfall would be and Hyrule.
Derek, do you want
Warriors.
Hyrule Warriors moved over?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Yeah,
I thought for our podcast, most of us enjoyed it.
Yep, I do think it's good.
Sackboy.
Sackboy. Yeah.
Sackboy's really fun, but
No, I haven't played it.
it's not gonna win. So
Okay.
Yeah, same with Tell Me Why. Again, I'm the only one that played that one. I'd rather have Pedestrian over.
You
Tell
made
Me
a good case
but-
for the story on Tell Me Why, which was cool.
The story is
I wanna
really
try it.
good. I could see the gameplay turning some people off because it is very Life is Strange, but there's less there's less of a cool supernatural element to it. So I don't know. It's hard to fight.
Damn. Story Seasons.
nah, bro. No.
Alright.
That's the remake. So it's a remake of a older one, and I don't even understand why they remade this one. Supposedly it's popular, but
The new one, the Olive Town one, comes out in a couple months, I think.
that
right?
looks fun. This
Yeah.
one was not fun. Renee loves those games, and she was like, "We just stopped playing it because it's just not good." So
Mortal Shell coming on the list, Derek.
I love it. It's high up on mine, and Watch Dogs is too.
Okay.
It's kind of a bummer that Watch Dogs
Trash.
Legions is a 76. I don't get these people. Apparently,
Battletoads.
Jeff is right about me. I just like average games.
I am, dude. You would have loved it. We did last week. We did a impromptu segment of Swimming in Sevens where we took the Easy Allies idea of saying what are games that typically other people thought were mediocre or just okay or good maybe, and what were some of our favorites. So stuff like Watch Dogs Legion, Maneater.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that we highlighted last week. So you could have highlighted Mortal
Avengers.
Shell. All right, now we're getting down to the low 70s.
69.
Anybody care about Marvel's Avenger?
No, I'm not gonna. I would not. I mean, I enjoyed my time with that.
Godfall is a 61. Good
Because you
lord.
like garbage.
Holy junk! It
Dude, look it
barely
up to
even
see if
made
it's
our
still.
list.
Look it up.
I cannot-
Look it up to see
I
if it's still-
cannot believe Twin Mirror got a higher score than Godfall because that is the most boring game of all time. That is insane to me. It was really boring, but I liked it. So I mean, what? Why?
Godfall is the worst.
So
The
stuff that we're
It
not.
literally on this list is the worst.
Yeah. I didn't bother listing anything under 60.
I get
Well, I'm glad it at least made 61, so it could
Yeah.
be on this list, so we can make fun of
Hey,
it.
Gearbox is doing just fine because whatever company just bought them for what 1.2 billion or something.
They're doing okay.
Yeah.
And if you watch the Epic Spring Showcase thing or whatever, Epic Games, it was really boring. It was not a good. It wasn't like a big State of Play or Nintendo Direct. Don't get excited about it. But they talked about a few games, and one of the games they talked about, they had the Godfall devs come on and talk about all the updates and improvements they're going to make to it. So if you like Godfall, they're still going to be working on it. They're going to add stuff to it.
Well,
Okay, so stuff
everything
we're
they
not-
talked about actually was done that day.
Yeah.
But I will say this, it was kind of underwhelming. I was waiting for them to be like, there's cross save or there's matchmaking or blah, blah, blah. And they didn't have anything announced that would be remotely interesting for the game. I just want to throw, because we're not going to move it over. It doesn't need to move over. I do like it. It is on my top 10. I don't remember where it is. I have to look at my list. But I will say I played it again this week, jumped back into it on my PC playthrough, and I like it, but it is, I can totally see, like, you saw how I reacted to Ghost of Tsushima. Like, it doesn't deserve an 83, it deserves 90 plus. This game, I look at it and I'm shocked that it's a 61. I honestly thought it was a 70s game, but I feel like it's justified. It's very bland and boring. The story is dumb. When your main character talks, he is so dumb. Like, he's being serious, so he's not like a dumb character. But he literally just says the same thing over and over. Like, the person that he's talking to, the main person that he's talking to that's supposed to help him on this journey to do what he's doing, she'll say something and he'll be like, we don't have time for friends. We only need people that we can use for our benefit. And like he just keeps saying the same thing over and over. All I care about is killing this guy. And I'm like, this is the dumbest story, and it is terribly written. Like, it's one thing if you have a bland story, but then when you add on like a terrible script that's voice acted average, it just makes everything worse. But it is a fun game, but it is like it's a swimming in sixes is fine. I agree.
So drowning in sixes.
Yeah, that's
drowning.
That's more.
So some of the significant ones that we didn't bring over to consider for various reasons, stuff like Half-Life Alyx, Microsoft Flight Simulators, Spelunky 2, Hunt Down, Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War. We didn't bring that one over.
It's a really cool campaign, single player campaign, but it's Call of Duty. What do you guys expect?
It's almost like a sports game at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Different roster.
Deep Rock Galactic, 2 Point Hospital, some of the smaller name games that really have a very unique audience that not everyone's into. We aren't bringing those over. Streets of Rage 4 and Battletoads aren't coming over.
2 Point Hospital or 2 Point Hospital.
God sounds cool.
It is super kind of retro style game. If you haven't seen it,
just sounds cool.
It's a side scrolling game. It's kind of interesting looking. I haven't played it, but it looks interesting. Yep. And then pretty much everything below a 70.
I played 2 Point Hospital over the week.
What'd you think?
It's a really enjoyable game, man.
Isn't it fun?
Yeah, it's so much fun. I normally don't care about any of those types of games either, but something about it's relaxing and just completely silly.
It's very silly, but it also has a fun like sim management aspect to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's if you ever are into those kinds of games, it's a fun one of those. So.
Yeah, dude. I was making bank before I stopped playing. Yeah.
What's fun is when you realize you can zoom out and purchase an entire lot right beside and expand the entire hospital and keep going that way. It's like
that's cool.
Yeah, you can keep going. All right. So on our list right now, we've got somewhere in the 25, 26 range of games that have been at least mentioned to move over, even if we don't think they'll make the top 10. So now we can start being a little more specific about, do we think these are worth narrowing, and I'll just get rid of this one. We'll probably just narrow them to 10, and then we'll rank. So we'll try to do what we did last time. Oh, actually, I do need to see this. I like having kind of the medium area to move them around.
Oh, yeah, because just in case there's more than 10, then
Yeah, then we can kind of compare the ones that are on the cusp, on the bubble, as it were, for those of you who are into March Madness coming up.
Yeah.
All right, so Derek, you missed last week. Are you there?
I am. I'm actually just trying to pull my top 10 list, but I was just trying to.
I don't know why you're not in the shot.
Well, why don't you you don't have to say much about it, but why don't you just name one that you think is a no-brainer somewhere on the top 10?
The Last of Us 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan?
Here we go.
7 remake.
There we go. Of course. I'm kidding.
Jeff?
Ghost. You already had it there. You already knew I was going to say it.
I was already hovering. I'm going to put Ori over there. Anyone opposed to me moving that to top 10?
No.
God, I wish I played more of it. All right. Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Beautiful.
I just wish I played more of it.
Game is beautiful.
By the way, quick side note. So I downloaded it on my PC. I had played it on Xbox, my Xbox One X, and it looked great. After they patched it, especially, it started to run super smoothly. It was jittery at the beginning. The frames were not great at the beginning, but it's great now. Runs fantastic. Works great on the Switch too, by the way.
It does.
But I installed it on my PC and put it at max settings, and I had the little NVIDIA FPS counter up in the top. I was getting like 140 frames per second.
Oh, jeez.
And 1440p. It was gorgeous. I mean, it looked. I was shocked. I was like, I wish I would have done this before we talked about visuals, because I probably would have pushed for this to win best, like, kind of animated or artistic visuals. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. And I also didn't realize, I had forgotten how much I played this game last spring. I was at 98% completion. I just needed to collect a few more of the little pieces to upgrade the little village. So I'm almost finished.
I started a second playthrough when I got my Series X.
Yeah.
And I'm not far in, but I activated on my new OLED screen. Yeah. So it's 120 hertz. So I activated that, and this is a game on the Series X. It's pretty cool, that can actually run native 4K and 120 frames per second. So I did that, and on my new screen too, it's breathtaking.
Dude, it's one of those things.
It's already a pretty game, but it's ridiculous.
It's eye popping. Like it loaded up, and I was like, I forgot how good this looks. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. A little sidetrack there.
Dan, did you play Ori? I forget.
Yeah, I haven't finished the second. I'm contemplating whether I should restart. Like, I feel like I'm like halfway through it, but like it's been like a couple of months now.
I'm just making sure we all at least touched it, so that's good.
Yeah.
I would say that game, for me personally, those games, like, you can't walk away from them. Yeah, because you actually get confused and lost.
You do. The map is pretty daunting, and
I get lost right away. That's why I switched to another game or something.
All your special abilities and the way you have to. This one's a little more complex in the way you have to equip stuff.
Well, I think I started it right around when I got the PS5, so then I started playing like Valhalla and Spider-Man, and then
You might have to start it over.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's go back to you, Derek. Anything that you feel like is an obvious one, or at least one that you want to nominate to be moved over there from this list right here?
Let me look. Is that the whole list there? There's nothing up top. Okay.
Yeah, there's a
few. Valhalla.
So I'm in agreement with that. Dan, are you okay with it automatically jumping in the top 10, or are you pretty against that?
Not necessarily against. I mean, I guess I'd have to really look up and down the list. Okay. It's just. I don't know, man. It's just that ending just annoyed the crap out of me.
I loved it.
Because it's not really an ending. Like, it's just.
Well, don't spoil it. I haven't beat it yet. I'm sorry. 70 plus
just
hours.
Me personally, it's just not.
It's absurd that you're 70.
Derek, it's one of those things where you don't know if you're at the end or not. You're like, okay, I wrapped up that set of missions, and then they kind of like, when you finish any mission in Assassin's Creed, it gives you like the completed. Yeah. You completed this arc, and then you're still just standing there, and you can keep wandering. That's kind of what it does, and it doesn't say the end or credits roll or anything. I'm in
my 12th alliance, so I've made alliances with 11 areas.
There's some really key moments that are impossible to miss. There's these huge climax moments in the Viking setting and in the modern day setting that kind of, to me, it's pretty obvious that you're kind of getting towards the end. They just don't really tell you, all right, the main game is now over. Feel free to keep exploring until we release DLC to continue the main story. They don't really say that. You just kind of. I had to look it up, and people were like, "Yep, that's the last mission." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, it's the main game I'm still playing, and even though I've whined about it a lot, like it's too long, and I still stand by that.
It is. But it's so good.
Still, this is the crazy part. I get conflicted. I'm like, is this my favorite Assassin's Creed? And I can tell you many, many reasons why it shouldn't be, but it's also the only Assassin's Creed game that I played 70 plus hours in, and not really taken a big break. And I find that every time I'm in England, which I would say 65 hours out of that 70 I've been in England, I have absolutely loved it. It's anytime they take me out of England that I'm like, I don't care. Put me back in England. Let's get through this story. Let's keep moving this forward. I don't care about anything else.
I did think the Vinland missions were cool, though. But anyway.
I haven't done Vinland.
Okay.
That's like a side one, and I'm only focusing because
you don't have to do it.
No, that's why I'm not, because I'm a power level 325.
Yeah, you're
I'm
crushing
OP
everybody.
as hell.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, can we just get through this? But I have to say this. This is where I have to give the game props. Each area that you're taking over, while some of the missions, of course, are redundant, like you're doing kind of the same thing for most of them. They do a really good job with each story being, and this is coming from a guy who does not give a crap about stories and games anymore. They do a good job of like keeping you kind of interested in what's happening in those territories and what you have to do to earn their loyalty is what I will say. So they at least make that interesting, and that's to me what they did good. I don't think the overarching story is that amazing so far, and sounds like one or two of you don't think it ends very well, but I would say at least while you're playing the game, the territories that you're taking over, they at least have interesting plots. So
I think it's really that Dan
fun.
doesn't feel like it ends. So it's like, well,
it's just
he feels robbed of a true story conclusion, and I think that's fair.
I feel like it's just too like spread out. It spreads itself out too thin.
It does.
Like I feel like when you have like
there's too many territories. There's too many.
I forget what
too
I
many
was
required territories. I'm okay with the game being huge with tons to do, but the fact that they require you to do so much is where I kind of go. I'm in the camp where I see why it annoys people, but I freaking loved it, and I played it over 100 hours. I loved this game, but I see why.
I think I have to do 3 or 4 more territories that are required. From the walkthroughs I've looked at, it looks like I need to do 3 or 4 more, and I'm like, plus that's just England. Plus, I'm not going to spoil it. Then I've got to go to some other place for a different ending to the story. That's going to have a bunch of shizit that I have to do. So
you mean like with the potion stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why
I didn't even finish. That stuff I barely even touched because I was just like, this is a whole nother thing. And getting around that area is annoying. Like
it is, but I've heard that that's what makes kind of the story better. So I want to.
It's not so tied in that you have to play it, just to be clear. And I did finish that element of the story. It does take a while. It's just 2 new giant areas to explore.
Well, I've already done the first part of Asgard.
So you're on the second one.
Damn it. And then I already did the second one.
Okay. Well, then you're pretty much at the end then.
I think you go back to, I already said it, Asgard.
Yeah, but that second trip there isn't as lengthy.
All right, good.
So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I think it does belong in the top 10. It might not go real high on our combined list because Jeff hasn't really played it. Have you at all played this one, Assassin's Creed?
No, yeah, I played a few hours of it. Okay. The more I hear of it, the more I'm like, I'm never going to beat it because it's like a Persona 5 level of freaking length. It's ridiculous to me.
It depends on what you like. So for Persona 5, it's a very, in general, even this long game, it's relatively linear in terms of exploring and things focused. Like that. And it's very focused. Assassin's Creed is the opposite of focused. It literally puts you down in the middle of this massive map and is like, pick where you want to go. And some people like that. I really enjoyed it because I was able just to sit back and just enjoy playing it. But if you're on other games,
been very focused in Assassin's Creed. Like the only time I wasn't focused was when, and you have to go back probably 5 or 6 weeks ago, well, longer than that, on our show where it was actually Tim that was like, "Oh, you need to go back to the lady and talk to her." I totally forgot about her. I did get lost in like a territory and just started doing stuff. Like I was just looting, like I was looking for material, I was looking for armor, all this stuff, and that was all I was doing. I was like, where am I going? Like, what am I doing? And then he's like, you need to go back and talk to the lady, and then she's going to tell you about another territory. And I was like, once I discovered that and realized that, because I don't think I think the game notifies you, because she literally says out loud after you finish a territory, she'll be like, I need to go talk to Ravi or whatever her name is. But I must have missed that, and so I just started exploring the world. But once I knew, hey, that's what I need to do, then I got in a rhythm that I literally go from territory to territory. I don't do anything side quest. I only do the main narrative in those territories. Then I go back to her. The only the only side things I do is the little black boy who gives you little missions to do for Opal. Right. I do those because I'm always hoping he'll give me like some legit, and I have gotten some. Like,
and those are like the most assassin-like things that you do in the whole game, right? Because you're going on hit missions essentially.
Yeah, so I like those. But other than that, so I would say, Jeff, if you like Assassin's Creed combat, like the Origins and Odyssey, this is a great game. And the length, while it can get annoying, as long as you pace yourself and maybe you can, in this game, take breaks because you're not going to be that lost when you get back.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just fun. For me, Persona 5, like I played 40 plus hours of that game. I always want to go back and beat it. But the 100 hours is daunting because for me, I'm only speaking to me, it's not fun. Like I don't like the castles and stuff, how they're set up and all that stuff. So I don't have fun with that. But with this game, it is fun. They do make some mistakes, of course, but overall, it's fun. That's what keeps me. That's why I said I think this could potentially be my favorite Assassin's Creed, just because I'm going to end up putting more time in it than any other.
Yeah, I've super enjoyed all three of the modern, the newer Assassin's Creed games, newer trilogy, whatever it's called, right? Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. Odyssey is my favorite out of the three. Now that I've finished all three of them, I love Odyssey, and it probably is because I've also played all the DLC. Has a weaker overall main story and weaker main characters. I think the main characters of Valhalla are better, but I like the setting of Odyssey better. I think the visuals are just more striking. And anyway, we can come back to this one as we get ready to rank some stuff. I do wonder about Spider-Man Miles. Is there any reason we wouldn't put that in the top 10, right?
No, yeah, it should be in the 10.
Spider-Man,
in my opinion.
Okay. Based on everything that's been said about Spider-Man's visuals, the combat, and the story, I don't see how it can't be in our top 10 based on how we ranked it before. Okay. Talk to me about Resident Evil 3, or does that sit in the middle while we talk about other games too? Because I know, Dan, you love it, and I know, Derek, you were a little more lukewarm on it.
I mean, gun to my head, if I had to pick between that and Assassin's Creed, I would pick Resident Evil.
It's top 15. It's not actually top 10 for me. In my own personal list.
Let's leave it in the middle for now. I don't think Haven's going to make it in. I think Pathless might be.
I haven't played it yet, unfortunately, but I do know it would be something that I'll enjoy. So
it's free. Play it.
But Haven?
Well, I mean, it's on Game Pass.
Well, I don't have Game Pass, Jeff.
Oh, look how blue Dan Room is.
Yeah. Look at all this blue. Do you see any green? Well, maybe in a second this will be green, but
yeah, it'll turn green for a second.
There you go.
There it is.
Not a true gamer. Doesn't play all the consoles. Not true gamer.
All right. So, does Doom Eternal belong on this list, or maybe it's right there with Resident Evil 3 as like a maybe? Here's the thing about Doom Eternal: we've kind of crapped on this game a lot, but it's all because our expectations were high. Okay, I'll speak for myself. The reason I have trouble putting Doom Eternal high in nearly any category is because I felt like it was an overall letdown compared to Doom 2016, which completely was amazing. And this does feel like more of that. And for some reason, it's not more of all the good stuff. It's more of it, but also it's not all good. I don't know how to explain it. It didn't feel quite the same. The experience just wasn't quite as fun. I don't know what it was. My adrenaline wasn't pumping in the same way. I was more frustrated at times. I think Derek talked about how they aren't as liberal with the ammo, which makes the combat kind of get interrupted a lot more frequently, and platforming interrupts. So I like it a lot.
I was not paying attention to Tim until he triggered me with the word liberal.
Fair enough. I think it's safe to move Cyberpunk 2077 over to our top 10, right?
Yeah.
Even though I have my gripes with that game and they're very justified, it's definitely in the lower part of my 10. Yeah. Because of how addicted to it I am.
They're justified in your head, Jeff, which is wrong.
Cyberpunk 2077 is actually number 10 on my list, and maybe it'll bump up a couple spots when I do actually finally roll the credits on it. I didn't play it at all this past week, but I'm working my way through it. I like it a lot. It's very, very good.
Yeah, I really liked it.
I think Hades belongs on there, but it might be more of a Resident Evil 3 thing where we have to debate whether or not it goes in or not.
Yeah.
What about Immortals? Did anyone else play it besides Derek? And do we fight for it in top 10, or is it more of like?
I played a little bit of it. It's fun, but I didn't get more into it.
They just actually released a demo and I played it, so I played about an hour of it. It does seem really fun, but it doesn't. I don't know. It seems more of like a casual Assassin's Creed. Just kind of
bring it over at least to the round 2 one.
Yeah.
Because it is in my top 10, even though I've only played 4 hours, I believe. I did put it in my top 10, but it's more of a just knowing my taste potential thing. And that the only reason why I'm not playing this is because of Assassin's Creed. That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, Dan, what about Animal Crossing?
Oh, God.
I mean,
maybe we should get a 6-year-old girl on here to give their opinion.
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't have a
We
kid.
do. We have
Eric?
one. It's Dan.
Really?
Ugly bitch.
So wait, so you walk up to 6-year-olds and call them ugly bitches?
Oh my gosh. All right. So I'm gonna
Tim's
channel
like, all right, dad time. Dad time.
Animal
channel
Crossing-
the spirit of Kyle here and just say, I mean, if you guys want to leave it off, that's fine. But this is one of the biggest cultural games of 2020.
Well, I was
I mean,
gonna
if you,
say-
I played it for like 200 hours and loved it. But I mean, if you guys don't like it, that's fine. I just think you're.
How about the only guy on this podcast that actually played literally probably 100 hours of it with his wife? So
How about I say this?
how about I uppercut you in your
I
grundle?
accidentally booted it up today. Does that count for anything? I was trying to play Mario, and I was using my daughter's Switch, and I accidentally booted up Animal Crossing, and I was extremely angry over that. By the way, my daughter, no lie, took over 1,000 pictures of that game.
That's
I
a
had
lot.
to go through and delete 1,000 pictures. If you've ever tried to delete pictures on the Switch, it is a painful process.
Is it one at a time or?
You're a painful process.
No, you can
do up to
multi-select
100, but you
it just
have
takes
to
a while.
manually select all 100.
Oh yeah.
There's not a select
You can't
all
just
button.
say select all and then it loads a
There's
deleting.
no select all. You can select a bunch before you hit delete, but you still have to do them one at a time.
Anyways, Animal Crossing was definitely a very important game for this year, just because of this past year, because of just the state of the world. But it certainly. I didn't play the previous games, so like as far as like the things they added in this one compared to the other ones, I can't speak to that. I've heard that obviously there's
How
more.
high is it
customization.
on your personal top 10?
It's in the bottom. It's an important game and it is fun and it has a
I
lot
would
of charm,
imagine it's in
but,
Kyle's top 10. I know he's not here, so technically he doesn't have a vote, just like I didn't have a vote last week on any topics you all talked about. But I think it needs to be in round 2, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that it just should do that it doesn't. Just simple things like just stuff in the menus that like doesn't make any sense. It's like we're in the year 2020. Why do you have to make this so cumbersome? Like little things like that. So
I'm moving Doom Eternal over to just so we consider it before we fill out the last few spots there in the final 10.
I don't think, just based on how we're all talking about it, I don't think it's going to make it. But
I don't think it will either.
No, it's
Crash
not.
Bandicoot.
I didn't
Crusader
even put it in
Kings,
my top 15.
Crusader Kings 3, Crash Bandicoot 4, 13 Sentinels are all excellent games in their own right, especially for folks who like those genres. Like if you are a Crash fan, that was the game. If you love strategy games, Crusader Kings 3 was, I think, the best one. And 13 Sentinels is basically this anime anime movie brought to life. It's really beautiful. It's got a really intriguing story around time travel stuff.
Oh.
But it it's not the most fun to play. Like I got into the combat sections and I was like, oh, this is kind of a weird tower defense with little glowing dots instead of actual graphics. Like the graphics during the story parts are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking forward to when I finally get to a real battle. And the battle is really this overhead kind of radar looking view. It's hard to explain until you try it. It's just not my favorite.
it seems like they definitely put most of the budget into the other part of the game, which is the story and the
voice
acting
is good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
the only 3 games that I care about, and then you guys can gauge whether you care about them are Mortal Shell, Neo 2, and Watch Dogs Legion.
Of those 3, which one takes the lead? Because none of those would make my top 10.
Okay. Even Watch Dogs, I thought you liked it.
It's just out of my top 10. Cyberpunk knocked it out of my top 10.
I think I actually have Watch Dogs rated the highest on my personal top 10, then Mortal Shell, and then Neo 2.
Okay.
Which I think Neo 2 is kind of like Immortals, where I'm actually going to play it on PS5. I have a feeling it's going to end up being one of my favorite games. Not ever, but like one of my favorite Dark Souls type games.
Well, I know that Kyle is not a fan of Watch Dogs Legion. I know he did not like it. I liked it a lot though. and I did think it was more of an 8.5 as opposed to like a 7.5 average that
I
it
think
got.
that's what I put. My score was like an 8.5.
So I think it's a really good game.
Yeah, it's fun.
Is it top 10 though for you guys? For me, it is, but I'm asking.
No, not for me.
Okay.
No.
It's like outside of it in the 15 somewhere.
I have it just below. I think I've got it at number 13, just behind Gears Tactics. So I liked it a lot. It's just not my. It's not my top. That's one I was going to mention here too. I think it's safe to keep Gears and Dreams off of the list.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
God, I wish I could fight for Dreams more. I think you guys have your minds made up about what it is as a game, so I'm not really going to fight for it more. Yeah.
Dreams, yeah.
I appreciate what Dreams is. Like I like what Media Molecule does. It's just I don't know, it's just not easy to jump into. It's not super user-friendly.
If there was anybody on this podcast that would have liked it, I'm not saying Tim couldn't like it. It would have been Daniel, and if he's not screaming on the rooftops, "This is a must," I wouldn't think it needs to be on.
It's just like it's like learning another language. You know, you have to have the patience and the interest in it.
Yeah,
you said patience.
Well, you don't even have to pursue it as a creator. You can just play it. Everything that everybody else is created. Sure. It's basically like a games library. It's pretty impressive.
But then you also, with that being the case, though, you are essentially playing mostly amateurish games.
Yeah.
You know? So, and then you see those things on like Twitter pop up, and you're like, wait, this was made in Dreams? How is that even possible?
If Dreams has the original Twisted Metal remade, then I'll put it in my top 10.
Probably does.
So Jeff, I'm gonna take a leap here and say the Pedestrian isn't gonna be in the top 10, but I did like hearing your description of it.
It is my 10 though, and also I forgot to mention, aside from like the realistic, other than the person that you're animated as, the realistic environments and stuff, the score is very much something from like Pixar. It's so freaking good. Yeah.
Nice.
Be careful with your Pixar comparisons around here. Dan just throws it around all the time.
I didn't say the visuals.
All right.
Doom Eternal and Pixar are pretty much the same thing.
Pretty much the same thing. I think Yakuza needs to at least be talked about.
Yeah. I mean, I would put it in the 10, but
I don't even know if it would not be in the top 10 if Kyle was here.
Right. Yeah, I think it would be if Kyle were here, and I would support it being on there too. So we'll talk about that. Any of these rests that we want to fight for, like for me, Spiritfarer and Haven are in my top 10.
I haven't played them,
10, but
yeah.
And I know you joined
Hyrule
me.
Warriors is in my top 15, but it's not top 10.
Okay, so Hyrule can stay.
I do think it's a great game.
Yeah, it's fun.
So I've got Spiritfarer and Haven and Yakuza all right at the bottom of my top 10, just around Cyberpunk. Those are all kind of grouped together.
Yeah.
So
Spiritfarer and Pathless are at the bottom of my 10 right now. Yeah.
So I would pick Spiritfarer over Haven if I had to move one of them over to fight for, and Haven can stay off the list. I think I've talked about it enough on these shows to let people know that it's good. They should try it.
Yeah, Haven's really good.
But I think Spiritfarer should at least be talked about, even if it doesn't make the cut. And then Star Wars Squadrons and Pathless, both excellent.
Yeah.
Will they make the cut though?
I don't see Pathless won't, even though it's really good. And it's in my 10 personally, but I mean, I could see arguments against it, especially because it's so open, and I don't know. It's just not.
It didn't make my top 10, although I did really like it. And the reason it didn't is because it just was such a short experience. I mean, it was 4.5 hours.
Yeah, that's another knock. Yeah.
So
and it takes a long time to get to combat,
so. Yeah, I liked it, but I bet you if you were to ask me about it in like 5 months, I'd be like, I kind of forget that game because it's just so brief.
And Squadrons for me is right outside my 10. I was just so impressed with that experience, and we already talked about the combat, and and I think we talked about the graphics too. But yeah, the combat was just not what I expect. I expected it to just be like pew pew and that's it, But they added so much other stuff and detail that was really impressive.
So Derek, is it fair to move Mortal Shell and Neo back over here, and we can keep what do we put?
Watch Dogs.
Watch Dogs. Yeah, leave Watch Dogs in for consideration, but move Mortal Shell and Neo 2 off.
Yeah, I mean they're not gonna go anywhere with you guys because you're pathetic.
They're both good, but
welcome to my life. I freaking poured my heart out for 7 remake on Story, and no one listens. No, I'm just kidding.
Dude,
it was still in the top 2. Are you kidding me?
It's not good enough, Jeff.
You got everyone to vote for
me. I haven't gotten to that.
And everyone was going to vote for Ghost second place. So you convinced everyone.
I let you.
Oh,
put it in
thank
number
you for
2.
your permission. Thank you for your permission.
Even though Ghost is better, but okay.
All
Both
right.
Japanese, so it's a win for me.
So for those of you who are listening and
Racist.
not tracking along on the video, the 7 that we already have moved over in alphabetical order here are Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Cyberpunk, 7 Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Ori, Spider-Man, and Last of Us Part 2. So those are the 7 that we have in the list. I think those are pretty solidly going to make
It's a
the top
good-ass
10.
list.
Sure is, buddy. And
list.
then we have 8 games that need to be trimmed down to 3 to fit into the list. Some of them I think we have to match up against each other because they're being championed by 1 or 2 people. So, for example, Dan, you might have to pick between which one would you push for, Animal Crossing or RE3.
Resident Evil, obviously.
Derek, you might have to look at Watch Dogs versus Immortals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think I didn't expect Hades or Spiritfarer to make the top 10, so I'm holding those very loosely.
I'm looking at every single one of these, and I'm like, I could see an argument for not putting any of these in there, and just ended up going with the top 7 for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know. I think Yakuza needs to come over. It's just so quality in every way.
Dude, yes, it's so good, but I mean, I get it if you guys are haters or whatever.
I have played it a little more since we talked last week, and Kyle, continued to do a great job of convincing us about the story last week. I did keep playing it a little bit, and I still really like it. It's really, really good. And I don't usually like that style of.
Dude, me neither. This made me want to It made me want to go back and play the older entries and
different gameplay though.
Very different.
Yeah, totally different. Yeah. But there's definitely a justification for that too in the story, which I thought was really clever.
So I'm going to move it in there. If you guys really are opposed, let me know.
No, I mean
listen. That's our like secret little. Hey Kyle, you weren't here. You get Yakuza. That means Animal Crossing cannot come over. Like,
I already said Resident
over.
Evil. I already said Resident Evil. So.
All right, so Animal Crossing is going to move back.
I just want to make sure Animal Crossing.
I too would have picked Resident Evil.
Stop looking at pictures of boobs on your phone and listen to what we're saying. All right.
He just needed to say liberal again.
Joke's on you. It's dudes' butts he's looking at.
This is
with little circles.
Amen, brother.
With little circles.
The Doom Eternal, I think, is going to move off the list. I don't think it's going to make it.
No.
Yeah, none of us are feeling passionate about it being on the list, so that's a good gauge right there.
All right, Derek, between Immortals and Watch Dogs, I would lean towards Watch Dogs.
I have to pick Watch Dogs just because I played it and beat it and loved it. And Immortals is more, like I said, like Neo 2, where it's potential, and I'm going to probably say next year how great it is.
Yeah, I agree. So it kind of comes down to stuff like Hades versus Spiritfarer. Do I want to fight for one of these?
That's a really good matchup, honestly, because they're both like hand-drawn or whatever. And
if I had to pick between the two, I would pick Hades because the game is fun to play. Spiritfarer is an amazing little kind of boat sim game. I don't know. It's weird. It's hard to really describe.
It's super unique. Yeah.
But so I think it's really, really cool. But Hades to me is more fun moment to moment. You can jump in at any point and do a run in Hades. It's not that hard to pick up and play. It is hard to be amazing at it.
But that's intentional, though, right? It's designed.
It is intentional.
I think it makes way more sense Hades being on there. I've heard enough about Hades and Yakuza to know that they definitely should be on the list just because of their quality and what they do. They do really well. Like
breaks my heart to not have Spiritfarer in there because it is in my 10 and Hades isn't, and I think that's only because Hades wasn't. I didn't play it as much.
So I give Hades the edge
did.
on my personal list too. Hades is my 7th favorite, and Spiritfarer is my 8th on my personal list.
Wow.
And they're really close.
Neck and neck, man. Yeah.
And then Haven's my 9th.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're all really close. Okay, so now we're down to Hades, Watch Dogs, and Resident Evil, and this is a little bit odd for me. Like I put Hades in over Watch Dogs, but not by much. I'm thinking Dan would put in Resident Evil.
Mm-hmm.
Derek, I'm gonna guess you'd put in Watch Dogs out of these 3.
Yeah.
Although Resident Evil might be close. I don't know for you.
Well, it would be Watch Dogs and Resident Evil. You know, I don't care about Hades at all.
And then Jeff, which one would you go? Because I think the reason I split it up that way is I think you've essentially got one picking for each of these.
Yeah, I mean, I would go. I mean, Hades, I would for sure put in there myself. I feel so torn about Watch Dogs and Resident Evil 3 because like Watch Dogs is more fun for me to play, Or because Resident Evil nails what it's going for so hard that I'm like scared to play it sometimes. But that's what they do. That's what they do best, though. I don't know. I don't know.
I really
make it tough.
I truly think the only thing that Resident Evil 3 has against it is just the lack of like certain sections that should have been there that was there in the original. Otherwise, I think it's still very high quality. Like the quality
Does it get a knock
of it
because it's a remake? Does it get a knock for that?
Well, no, because again they fleshed it out enough like they did with Resident Evil Remake 2. Resident
we
Evil
ranked
2
that
remake.
pretty high. We ranked that one pretty high.
Like again,
I think actually 3 got hurt, but because 2, not only is 2 a better game, but the remake was better, and so because this is the second remake that's been released in the last year, I think it came out a year after Resident Evil 2. It's not as like, even for me, like Resident Evil 2 remake was much higher up, not just again because it was a better game, but because it was so high quality. 3 matches that quality wise. Like I can't complain about 3. It looks good, it plays good. I just beat it again. But it's not even in my top 10. So is it higher than Hades? Yes. Like I don't care about Hades at all. And that's not just me being a hater. I think if you guys moved Hades over, I'm not going to whine about it because I know it's quality. It's just not something I care about.
I think it's one of the highest quality. It's not my favorite genre.
I honestly think
game.
Objectively, it would be a mistake if we left Hades off.
I think it goes in over Watch Dogs, just quality.
I don't get Watch Dogs has to go, but my vote would be Resident Evil 3 then. Just so you know.
Well, but
I'm curious. Was about to argue for the quality of game that Resident Evil 3 is basically over Watch Dogs, because Watch Dogs, it's an open world, so it's clunky and there's some we can definitely get into there's already some broken games in the 10 that we have, or the 9 that we have already.
Watch Dogs doesn't do everything good.
No, it's just fun.
What it does do when it comes to like fun, like gameplay, it does amazingly, but everything else, and the world, London's awesome. But everything else, like voice acting, story, is okay.
Yeah, story's not much for me at all.
The dialogue, all that stuff's bullcrap. It's like, not.
I know you and
Resident Evil's got a polish to it.
I know you and I bust each other's balls with the Resident Evil 3, but I just don't get, as a Resident Evil fan, why you don't like this one that much. Like,
why?
It legitimately confuses me. I think it's very high quality. It's just missing.
I will always confuse you.
Well, yes, I understand. Absolutely.
You should confuse you.
Once a person figures me out, I intentionally change.
Okay. I'm a chameleon. Like
that is an amazing quote. That is an amazing quote. All right, so Resident Evil 3 and Hades have found their way into the top 10. I think that's the right call. I think, Jeff, to your point, Resident Evil 3 it's too high quality for us not to give it recognition. Yeah. I agree with that. I think Watch Dogs probably needed another half year of polish, and they should have rethought the way they did the voices, and they should have done a central. We talked about this in a story last week. It really missed the ball on not having a central character. There's too many knocks on it. I get it. I enjoyed it though. Like I still recommend people play it.
It's definitely got a fun factor. Yeah,
I think it's fun.
And the plot twist was so predictable. Like it really was. I knew in the first 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, this person's the best.
Yeah, when they did the plot twist, I was literally like, oh.
Yeah,
I can already.
Almost no points for story for me. It just didn't really hook me at all in this.
And I know I'm making it sound, but trust me, when I do my top 10, it's I think number 5. So that's how much fun I had with it. So I'm knocking it, but I'm knocking it out of objectiveness.
It seems like you go for the fun stuff. Well, I can't really say that because Last of Us Part 2, but
that is
seems
fun.
Like you go for the fun.
Yeah, but that's the game's
more than
fun
the story.
You're a monster.
Yeah.
No, I'm being serious. I'm not even trying to be like cool. Like I play The Last of Us because it's fun.
Well, the second we'll start thinking Derek's cool, he's just gonna change. So
yeah,
we'll talk about it. Here's the 10 games that we need to now rank in alphabetical order. They are Valhalla, Cyberpunk, Final Fantasy, Ghosts, Hades, Ori, RE3, Spider-Man, Last of Us, and Yakuza. So I think the ones that barely made the cut probably need to be in the bottom half. So I'm gonna move stuff like Hades.
Resident Evil 3 can go at the bottom. Like I think clearly quality-wise amongst all of this, it's at the bottom. So
okay, all right. Well, then that's definitely a number 10 then, since the
I think
supporter of it
Yakuza
saying that.
should be 9, unless you guys really like it.
I personally
really
like
do.
Hades more.
But I get it if Hades goes up. I mean, games media, you guys are, clearly getting paid.
Don't throw that out there.
Okay.
Eric's gonna have a fit.
Okay, all right. Let me just give you some context. I am not being influenced by games media, Derek and Jeff. So when I finally bought my PC, and thanks to guys like Lee and to Derek for being my sounding boards as I was trying to figure out what PC to buy and all that kind of stuff, finally got the PC, set it up, and I got on my Epic Games account. That's one of the first purchases I made because it was still in early access. It wasn't out yet, hadn't been announced for Switch yet. It was still just early access on Epic Games Store. So I bought it because I already knew that I loved that developer, and this game looked cool. Sasan was talking about how it's an amazing game. Got it, and I played through a ton of this game when it was before it had gone to version 1.0 and officially was out. I loved this game. Now, could it have been impacted a little bit by the fact that I had a new shiny PC and everything was cool? Maybe.
Yes.
But I thought it was so good. And then I got it on the Switch, and the save finally can transfer over to the Switch, and it's a blast on the Switch as well.
Yeah,
I like it better. I think both objectively and just personally, I like it better than Yakuza. But Tim, I'm okay with it. I think Kyle would vote for Yakuza.
I would.
Jeff, I think, is voting for Yakuza. I'm voting for Hades. Derek and Dan, what would you pick?
Well, just real quick though, when you said not influenced by game media, I want you to put a little asterisk in the video and put is influenced by game media. As you're saying that you're not.
Here's what I'm gonna say. Again, I'm gonna knock the objective out because objectively I put Hades above Yakuza, and I'm not saying it's because it's a better game. I'm just saying like I think for like gameplay and all that stuff, it's better. But I personally, if you're like, Derek, you have to sit down and play one of these games for 5 hours straight, I'm picking Yakuza.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And I can see the knocks against it being like, well, it's just, I mean, the writing is just more Yakuza and what you expect from those games. But I don't know, man. The writing is just so freaking good. So just
they do a good job with their drama, like they're over the top
drama, and it's so I mean, these are straight up comedy games, but they're like
they are very funny.
They really do nail the characters so well that when there are not really emotional beats, but when there are actual serious beats, they don't feel like out of place, which is such an insane balancing act.
So when you guys look at the other 7 games, would you put any of these 3? Yakuza, Hades, or Resident Evil 3 over any of those 7? Are we off? Are you good?
These bottom 3 feel right to me.
I like the order we have them in the bottom 3.
Again, and I'm not being a wise guy, just for me personally.
Wise guy.
Valhalla would be at the very bottom, but that's just me.
Yeah, you have terrible taste.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you.
I didn't even bother saying that.
We can go back and forth all day.
I didn't even bother saying that because I know that Valhalla is going to be like end up in the top 5 regardless. So.
It might be. I don't know. I don't know. I think, to me, I put this one and Cyberpunk on a very similar playing field of like they're very quality in a lot of ways, but they're not going to strike for everybody.
Yeah.
If you don't like the setting, or if you're not a fan of the pacing, or whatever the thing is, you might not love it like others do. Like Cyberpunk, I love CD Projekt Red because of The Witcher 3. This game is not like an instant home run, no brainer for me personally.
Yeah. How much did you play of Cyberpunk?
I'm almost done. I just haven't played in the last week, but I'm almost done.
Okay.
I think I have. I looked at a walkthrough, and I think I've got maybe 3 or 4 main missions left. If I decide
did you just mainline it, or did you do like exploring? Did you loot?
So I've put about 25 hours into it.
Okay, that's a little bit more than mainlining it. Okay.
Yeah, so not a ton of side stuff, admittedly, but a lot.
Yeah, by the end I was like at 34. No, I was definitely.
I think I've only got like 2-3 hours left.
I was
40,
like at
40.
I was closer to like 60 hours. I didn't even do that much side stuff.
Okay.
I got obsessed with getting like the best loot, so I spent many hours just going and getting the best guns and armor.
My problem is that I don't have fun fighting. I like this, the world and the characters and the decisions, and then when I get to actual battles, when I get to the actual battles, I'm not having that much fun with the combat.
I had such a hard time with smart guns, honestly. Maybe I just don't know how to work them right or something, but every time I fired them, it like went I just love the gratification in shooters of like shooting somebody directly in the face.
So
and seeing them
as
splatter
I'm
and
playing
hearing
it,
that pop sound, like
I
Dude,
will
I'm
say
so
they
with you.
really nail the shooting when you like nail the guy in the head.
yeah,
Like you can feel it. Like there's
Oh,
like
yeah.
this like thump.
yeah, it's like the Destiny 2 type
Headshots
thump
do good.
when you shoot them in the head, and you're like, oh yeah, that's
As
so
I'm-
gratifying.
As I'm playing it, though, I keep finding myself wishing that the combat played like Borderlands, and then I feel like this would be a much better game for me personally. And I know people love the RPG elements to it, and I've tried and I've dug into them, and maybe I'm doing it the wrong way. Maybe I need to go through a guide. I'm just not enjoying all that stuff that much. So I feel the same way about Cyberpunk that I feel like Dan feels about Assassin's Creed. So I feel like those are going to be tough to put too high based on the other ones they're going up against, because we at least have one person on the panel that's not loving it. We like it, just don't love it. And
Well,
so
it's
that's how I feel
just-
about Cyberpunk.
I
Yeah,
really I liked my time with Cyberpunk, but man, it was a freaking it took way too long for me to find a working version of the game.
So I feel like these two belong below the other 5 of Final Fantasy, Ghost, Ori, Spider-Man, Last of Us. That's just
See,
feel like it's-
you're now taking 2 of my top 4 games and dropping them really low.
So I think
the case for it.
I think the best approach is to really just divide the sort of like gameplay, story, music, and all that, and then start kind of cataloging. Well, what does better in this category, and does this game do better in these 2 categories versus the other? Because I mean, like you can sit here and say I like this more, but like you gotta kind of think of all the different sections of the game. You know, how does it play? How's the story? Is the music great? Is
Here's how I see this kind of panning out, and you guys can disagree or not. I think The Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and Final Fantasy 7 are probably going to be in our top 3 or 4.
That's what I said last week.
Yeah.
And y'all know I don't like Final Fantasy 7. So if it ends up being
Weirdo.
high,
You're
it's
weird.
only because of you guys.
It's very weird.
It deserves to be.
Those are in my
top 10.
personal top 3, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so then
Sony
those 3
ponies, all
need to
of
be
us.
moved up to the top. We can figure out the order later. And then I think this is where it depends on how high y'all feel about Ori and Spider-Man compared to because Assassin's Creed and Cyberpunk not destroy because I liked Ori a lot, but it destroys Spider-Man for me. And I like those 2 games more than I liked Ori. Like they're rated higher.
But Spider-Man works. So
yes,
why are we defending such broken
you're
games?
talking just gameplay wise. I didn't like the story. I thought the story was stupid. I thought the villain was retarded.
No.
I thought
wrong.
it was.
I mean, you're wrong.
It felt like a small game. I never felt like I was playing this big. And I know it's not. I'm just telling you why it's a not for me.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I just didn't feel like it was a complete game. I felt like it was a short story that I didn't care about.
Yeah, we put it number 4 for story.
But it's
Story's
very
awesome.
high up for me combat-wise. Like I've already said it on the previous show. I think Spider-Man Miles Morales plays way better than in 2018 played fine. It wasn't like it was broken. I just think it's more I shouldn't say it played way better. It was more fun.
Yeah.
For me than 2018.
And the visuals are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On PS5 it's stunning.
Yeah.
Even on PS4 I noticed the graphics. I don't know, it just looked better. Like cuz I went back to 2018 Spider-Man right after that and I was just like, I don't know, I just wanted to go back to Miles.
Well, Jeff and Dan, what do you guys do between Cyberpunk? We keep saying Cyberman or Spider-Punk, but anyway,
well,
what do you do between those 2?
Like to go with, because again, Derek is the kind of person, like he has said himself, he will skip story beats because like sometimes he's just not feeling it. He's not feeling what that story is. And I mean, with Spider-Man, if that's how he felt, that makes sense. I gravitate towards emotional stories. I definitely got choked up at the ending of it, just because of that relationship with that particular character, and then like kind of that last fight, everything that goes on there, the sacrifice that occurs.
I think that's the thing, though.
The way
like
the city
you guys,
reacts,
and that's fine if you get emotional and you connect with it. My reasoning that I can't connect with it is this, and I'm not making this up to be funny on the show. This is literally what I was doing. I was like, this is not even realistic at all. This is stupid. Like some of her reactions to things, I'm like, no, she wouldn't have reacted that way. Like you just did this to create something that you didn't have to do.
Do you remember what those moments were? Or?
Yeah. The entire time she's talking to him and he's talking to her, there's always a coincidental interruption when they're trying to finish like a serious conversation, or he would tell her something or she would find out something and her reaction didn't match, for me, again, everybody has different personalities, a realistic reaction.
I don't know.
Like, instead of just working this out with your friend that you're really close to, they kept avoiding the conversation. And
they hadn't seen each other in so long, though, so there was sort of like this kind of time, this gap in time where like they sort of went in different directions as people.
Yeah.
And then when
I'm talking later in the game, I'm not even talking when they first meet and she won't talk.
But even later in the game,
I understand a personality of somebody who has a secret and they don't feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, they both have like similar backstories and trajectories as people. Yeah, and tragedies from their life that influenced what they ended up doing with their life, I guess. I kind of see what you're saying but I think that's a product of the game being not a full game. Like, it's like we have to wrap up the story and we have to have conflict. Yeah. So I kind of get what you're saying about the story.
But I also feel like, so I agree with Jeff there that it is because I do believe it's because it's short. But I also felt like it was like, I do think they were trying to get you to care for this character, and then this character becomes the baddie. So now you have this emotional thing at the end of the game. That, for me, maybe it worked for y'all.
It just didn't land.
I know I normally insult you guys and be like, you're dumb, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to. I'll be nice. I just think it's forced and it was stupid. Like, that's
dude, as you're describing the Spider-Man stuff, honestly, my experience with Cyberpunk has been similar at times, as there's real serious moments, and when you're talking with Johnny Silverhand, there are times when I'm having trouble connecting with they're so inconsistent, and it's because the game is so open.
And I think it's something to do with the order of the missions or something, and that's not, I don't know, you shouldn't have to rely on the order in which you play a game for the story to be
connecting because of that.
Yeah, we discussed that last time because Kyle and I were saying how like we had all these other moments where like it kind of filled in some gaps. So like that beginning to end with Johnny Silverhand kind of felt a little more fleshed out.
And to us it feels.
I played literally every story in Mission. I don't understand
because
I feel like
there's some side missions that he pops up in, and he kind of
played a lot of Cyberpunk. And I'm still playing it. Like, I'm actually playing through it a second time. Wow. And I'm not starting from the save point where you can get different endings. That's on my PC. I'm playing my second playthrough on my Xbox. I'm continuing it. By the way, it looks way better on the Series X now than it did when it launched. Like, it actually visually looks better. I don't know what they did.
Finally.
And they didn't patch like a Series X patch, so I don't know what they did. But anyways, but I will say, Johnny, again, you make your own decisions technically in this game, but my relationship with Johnny and V was very hostile, like mouthy. And then towards the end of my PC playthrough, it like switched in this one mission where Johnny was like,
"Yeah, we talked about
I really
that
like you."
Dude, like, we had the same. Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, I still don't like you.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't ready to get there yet, and the game was telling me to get there, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I do agree that kind of happened.
So I guess it's disjointed depending on how you approach Johnny, then.
No.
Yeah, if you're nice to Johnny and you like him right away, I think him naturally going like, hey, blah, 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 fits. Whereas when we're literally mouthing off each other the entire time, and then all of a sudden in this one mission, he like spills his guts about something and then basically says, you mean the world to me and I want to save you or whatever. And I'm like, dude, I still don't like you.
Yeah.
But I felt like I felt like I had to tell him, yeah, I feel the same way. So I did. I faked it like I do in all my relationships.
Oh my gosh. All right,
that's smart, actually. That's smart.
One of these that we haven't talked about, because there's been a lot said about these, which is really interesting. I do think it's very close between these middle four of AC, Cyberpunk, Ori, and Spider-Man. I think it's close, at least.
It is. Yeah.
I think it's okay with me if Ori ends up landing at the bottom of these four, which would put it at number 7, I guess. I think that's a good spot on our shared list. but for me, it is higher. It's right behind the top 3. It's number 4 for me. This game just resonated in every way. Visually, just knocked my socks.
I support Ori being higher, but of course, I'm putting it above Spider-Man, which you've got the other two. So you've got me and Tim that are pro Ori.
Yeah.
And then you've got Jeff and Dan that would be pro Spider-Man. So we're split there.
And then you've got Dan and Derek who are pro Cyberpunk.
Well, we could just put a vote to it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do that. Because I don't think we're just gonna land. Same thing will happen up with the top 3 probably too. So, Jeff, let's start with you. If you had to rank these 1 through 4, what are you ranking them?
Well, I'm just gonna be straight.
Or is there anything else you want to say about him? I should say. Anyone want to say anything else about him before we do that? Are we good?
I'm just gonna be straight with y'all and not even consider, the group in this ranking, because that's what we're supposed to do, right?
No. Yes.
When
unless
we're ranking,
someone has swayed you, unless some kind of conversation. The whole point of our debate was to maybe sway each other one way or another, and so you guys have me believing that Spider-Man is deserving of even the 4th spot if it makes it there. I haven't played it because you guys have done a good job.
So I mean, I would put personally, just because of my experience with the game being smooth and me latching onto the story and the characters, I would put Miles Morales ahead of all of these.
Okay.
And this is not a knock on what I put last. Just want to let y'all know that. It's just because I haven't played it as much. But I would put Cyberpunk next just because I beat it and it did hook me, even though I have so many gripes about the game. And then I would put Assassin's Creed and then Ori. And it's only because I haven't played it as much as you guys have.
No, that's fine.
That makes sense.
I think it's fair.
Derek, what would you do?
All right, so Valhalla is going to be 1, Cyberpunk 2, Ori 3, Spider-Man 4.
Dan, what about you?
You doing math on the fly is impressive, dude.
Wait, so you give the most points to Spider-Man?
I gave it 1.
No. Derek did.
No.
Right?
I gave it 1 point.
Oh, I thought. Okay, never mind. I misheard that.
Don't confuse us.
So literally going down the list, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, that's the number of points you would give it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well.
Oh man.
Poor
Spider-Man.
I'm not going to do the math first. I'm just going to rank them the way I would rank them. I'm not going to do the math first. To me, Ori goes number 1, so that goes up to 10. Assassin's Creed is my second one. So that's also a 10. And I'm making this difficult for everybody. I'm sorry. And then Cyberpunk is next, which is also a 10. I didn't mean to do this. And then Spider-Man is 1.
Are you fucking serious? That deserves a fuck.
Democracy wins.
Democracy
wins.
So, for those of you who are just listening, that evens this out at 10 points apiece for all 4. So the only thing we can do is either someone has to be okay with switching their vote, or we have to go to the Metacritic averages, which I believe is going to be.
So how many? We have 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom, right? So let's just say this is collectively our 4th pick. All 4.
It's a tie for 4th.
It is a literal tie. So I mean,
I think we have to go with the.
No, here's what we could do.
Yeah.
All right. So we already said that.
We could do the community votes on it.
Well, we could do where their top one was Jeff and Dan's top one was Spider-Man. And then my top one was Assassin's Creed.
And mine's Ori.
So Spider-Man has 2 votes.
For number 1.
And this is, I don't want it to be 4, just so y'all know. So I'm doing this unbiased.
So you're doing like more of a ranked choice.
Yeah, like so it's a Spider-Man got the most number 1 votes.
Yeah, so Spider-Man got the most number 1 votes.
And he got the most number 4 votes.
Yeah. But it's the only way we can move it up. Let's just move it up. Unless y'all have a problem with that.
With ranked choice, you rank the number 1s more, or you weigh them more, even if it got like the 2 number 4.
At least we know what's number 4. We've got Spider-Man as number 4.
Well, if we did end up going by... I'm okay with doing it that way, because then it's just from us. If we did end up going from the users, by the way, and these aren't necessarily the way that they landed...
you could do that, too.
From our community, then number 4 would be Cyberpunk. None of us picked that.
Let's do the users. I like the users.
No. This is our list. They have their own list. They can make their own bad choices.
I mean, we didn't do a good job though. We're tied at 10, 10, 10,
the system that you were just saying, I think that makes sense.
Which one? With Derek saying number one? I think so too. Because then it's just from us then.
Yeah, so just move Spider-Man to 4. And then Ori got 1 vote. Assassin's Creed got 1 vote. So those 2 would be.
And then Cyberpunk's at the bottom.
So I think the way we should do it is, Spider-Man should be 4, and then Tim and I should decide whether it's Assassin's Creed or Ori. Like it's up to us which one goes in the 5 slot.
That is a tough one.
Because I'll be honest with you, the reason I'm okay doing that is I'm okay moving Ori up as much as I love.
I was gonna say, I think y'all both love Ori though, so that's the thing.
Yeah. So why don't we just do
have
Spider-Man?
Too many criticisms of Valhalla to put it above Ori, even though I did love it. So I don't have any criticisms of Ori. I think it's
So then let's move Ori up.
All right.
So Spider-Man, Ori, and then it really just comes down to where you guys want to rank Cyberpunk versus Assassin's Creed, which we could do our own vote there.
Yeah.
You could do a vote there. Which one would you pick over the other one?
We're only breaking Derek's heart more if we do a vote on that.
I'm doing Assassin's Creed.
So am I. We're just gonna be tied again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're just gonna be tied again then. Yeah, there you go.
Kyle, where are you when we need you? Although he'd probably
he would go Cyberpunk. He would for sure. He did not have a good experience with Valhalla.
All right, well, let's let Kyle have a Phantom vote.
But then it broke on him, and he.
Let's give Kyle a Phantom vote, and we'll give Cyberpunk the edge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he would pick Cyberpunk over AC. I think, right?
I hope Kyle's okay. By the way, I mean,
he's probably just
Kyle, I hope you're okay.
I mean, he's probably just sleeping. I'm gonna be honest with you.
If that's the case, then great. I hope that's all. I hope he's not like
sleeping
forever.
He
likes to go camping out in the Rockies and it's like 1 degree outside. So I hope he's
no.
okay.
He wouldn't do something that silly because it sounds like a nightmare over there right now.
All right. Well, we've got our bottom 7 here, and starting with number 10, it's RE3, and then Hades at 9, Yakuza at 7. I'm sorry, at 8. Bad counting. Assassin's Creed at 7, Cyberpunk at 6, Ori at 5, Spider-Man at 4, and then we've got our top 3. We have to look at Final Fantasy, Ghost, and Last of Us Part 2.
What did we do on last week's episode? Because that's probably what it's going to end. Or actually, I see Final Fantasy swapping because Derek hates 7 Remake, apparently. So.
Oh, so trash.
It is
so.
Not, oh my God.
Can you just for one moment serious? Can you just for one moment talk seriously about that game? For one moment.
I have been talking serious. Just because you can't accept that I don't like it, that doesn't change it.
I don't think you dislike it.
It's kind of like when Derek makes a really good point about culture or something, but he says anyone who disagrees is dumb AF, and it's like, well, they're not going to listen to you now, even though you made a great point.
You could write like the most like.
I know Tim reads my stuff. He's like, damn, he's really smart. He has great insight. And there he goes calling for me a fucking douchebag.
We've talked about this before, where I'm like, man, you make so many good points, but then you lose people with the. And so stop being an idiot who's in love with his mother or whatever it is that you say.
Abbreviations,
Yeah, all the abbreviations with the emojis.
Doesn't know how to say brother.
For those of us who love you, it's endearing. For those who don't know you at all, they hate it so much.
Yeah, they do.
And it
was when I first joined the group and like when I finally started interacting and stuff, and when I'm pretty sure it was just something trivial like games or movies where Derek and I would disagree on something and he would throw out the dumb AF stuff, and then I was like, oh, that's just how he talks. So then when we started talking about real life stuff, I was like, that's just how he talks. So you just have to
you gotta wade your way through that.
You guys would totally love me when I'm being a youth pastor. Because I talk exactly like this to these kids. Yeah.
I believe
they love me because they'll be like, obviously when I was an official youth pastor, I would try not to cuss.
Yeah.
But they'd be like, Derek, we know you want to say shit. Just say shit. I'll be like, it's just dumb shit. You understand what I'm saying? So I would just drop it right there.
Boy, you let the teens manipulate you like that. You're a really good leader.
Oh, they love me. They still love me because they tell me the feedback I always get, whether you like me or not. If you do take the time to get to know me, is you're getting the real me. You're not gonna get like a fake version to appease you.
Yeah.
So there's good and bad to that, of course.
Service version, or it's well, sir, let me take a look at that for you.
only if you're dating me, you'll get the fake version. That's it. If you want to date me, you get a fake version.
All right. So for this top 3, it can be tough to revisit all the stuff we've talked about. We've hashed out visuals, gameplay, story, all kinds of stuff that these games have been vying for the top spot in a bunch of different lists. So we don't have to dive back into every element of each of these. People can go back and listen to those conversations if they want. But I've thought about this a lot this week because I knew I'd have to come up with a final list. And I've told you before, the order has shifted around. Honestly, and that includes Final Fantasy VII. I know, Dan, you don't believe me, but it's included that one too, with that shifting around which one I love the most. And I did fire each of them up just briefly just to make sure that, like, okay, yep, I'm remembering this one correctly. I did just for a little bit for each of them. Right now, I'm landing on the best overall game for 2020 as a video game being Ghost of Tsushima. That's where my opinion is landing. Wow. I think it's just the best game, start to finish.
Where's number
I know
2?
you won't believe me after the story discussion. You think I said the story was trash, and I didn't. I think it's got a.
I just think you underrated it. That's really
fair.
It.
I think it's got a very good story, but I think it's excellent in every other category. Characters are great. The voice acting is amazing. The visuals are shocking on my base PS4. I still can't believe it did the things that it did.
Yeah.
The combat was so fun, and the stealth was fun. And it's got a huge open world with tons to explore, lots to unlock. And then they went, here's what gave it the edge for me, and I know it's probably not fair, but they went and added an absolutely incredible free DLC update to this game in the fall. Yeah. That, to me, takes it to the next level of what a video game should be. Yeah. Amazing single player, shockingly good multiplayer, and it checks all the boxes. If you were to ask me, like, hey, what do you want the next big game to be? What genre? What do you want to feel like, look like? I would describe something like this, and they made it. So to me, it's my personal favorite game of 2020, followed closely by the other two. We'll get to which ones, but I don't know if you guys am I the only one who would push for Ghost number 1? How are you guys?
You know, I'm kind of a story cuck. So
hey, me too.
Yeah, so like Last of Us Part 2 for me, even though everything you're saying about Ghost gameplay is dead on.
Yeah.
Last was Part 2's story for me. Good. It's overwhelming how much I love that story. Especially by the end of it. Like, I didn't expect it to deliver so hard at the end.
And it does.
Yeah, it does. I thought it was just going to be build up, and then it kind of goes out with a little bit of a whimper. I don't know why I thought that, even though the first game wasn't like that, really. Yeah. I don't know why I thought that, but it was just something I came in with. And the fact that it blew me away so hard, surprised me. But at the same time, I mean, I've said before on here that Ghost and Last of Us are like the neck and neck for me. So I really don't. It's so difficult because the story in Ghost is so good to me.
So I start to look at which of these games have these minor little flaws here and there, and which ones mean more to me. I do think the Ghost story could have been even better than it was because I saw what Last of Us and Final Fantasy did with story. I thought both those stories were better than Ghost's story this year. Mm-hmm. So I know that video game stories can be better. That being said, that is a very minor knock because I still enjoyed the story a lot and I wanted to find out what happened, and it still kept me moving ahead. Last of Us Part 2 story was so compelling, but this is the same criticism I gave to a show that I used to love, like Walking Dead. It does revel a little bit too much in how much they can gross you out or break your heart. And so if I have to give it a little bit of a knock, was any of that gratuitous on their part? I don't know. I'm just kind of asking this question. So
I feel like there was a balance to it. Myself, I want to let other people talk, but I feel like there was more balance to it.
There could have been. But I felt like the story, there were elements I love the story to death. There were elements of some of those face-offs that I talked about last week that from a story perspective that I thought were just perfect. From a gameplay perspective, there are moments, especially the final confrontation, that didn't land as being like, this is amazing gameplay. I get it, it's purposeful, totally understand it. Mm-hmm. But there wasn't a moment in Ghost of Tsushima. There wasn't a moment of Ghost of Tsushima gameplay that I thought, this isn't that fun. There were moments of Last of Us Part 2 gameplay that I thought, all right, I'm going to get back to the normal gameplay. This part's not as fun. That's all. That's the only thing I could think of. It's such a minor knock on that one too.
Well, so like with like the gratuitous part that you mentioned, like with Last of Us Part 2, people, what's the term people throw out? Torture porn,
right?
Something it's like that, I mean, I get we all live. Some people live in a cushy little life where they don't see a lot of violence. But like realistically, like if in real life, like everything went to shit and like something similar like that happened in real life, you're gonna see like insane violence, absurd, insane violence. And I mean, like that actually does happen in the real world. I mean, look out what happens in the Middle East every freaking day. For example.
No, you're right. You're right. I get gratuitous is.
So it's about what you can stomach, you know. It's about what you can stomach, and some people think that that's too much. It's like, well, you're making a video game. Do you have to go that far? It's like, well, I mean, if I'm gonna make a realistic, or at least like, you know, some as realistic as I can within this fictional world of people, you know, being fungus people. But
this is where it's a little weird for me because I'm trying to draw the line between an overall video game and just the story. Because with part 2 was honestly way ahead of the other two. Oh, am I still there? Did you lose?
Yeah, you're good. Something it's like refreshes.
Oh, okay. The story-wise, to me, it wasn't close. I thought Last of Us Part 2 was far beyond all the others. But as a video game, which one could I not wait till everyone's finally asleep and I can sit down and play my game? Ghost. And I found myself at times back and forth. I can't decide if I like Final Fantasy or Last of Us more as a video game, not as a story, just as a video game. I feel like Ghost was just so much more fun to play than everything else I played.
Yeah.
And Final Fantasy VII was up there for me too. It was really fun to play. I couldn't wait to play more of the game. Last of Us, I couldn't wait to find out what happened.
Yeah, that is part of it, and I've said before, I'm very, very impressed by Last of Us. Very fluid combat gameplay, where it doesn't matter where you are, where your position, how the animation changes, and stuff like that when you're killing somebody.
Stealth is very satisfying in that game.
Yes, absolutely. And man, dude, you're freaking swaying me because I loved Ghost Story, and you didn't love it as much as I did, and it has everything you're talking about. Like so.
Yeah. Do you remember that feeling when you first get to an open field on your horse and Ghost of Tsushima?
Oh yeah. That the white flowers.
Oh my gosh! I couldn't believe this. I was like, this is a current gen game. Like this is happening now.
It blew my mind too. Yeah, I was like, this is not a PS4 Pro.
It was definitely overwhelming. It was like, whoa, like what's going on? How is this happening?
And Derek, early on when we first started playing it this past summer, he compared it right away to Breath of the Wild, and I thought that was an apt comparison because it's not like a Ubisoft open world where it's like, here's all your markers. It was more like, here's your blank canvas. Now you have to fill it in. So
it removes the HUD, lets you take it all in.
It does exploration in a wonderful way, I thought. Yeah. I don't know, man. This is kind of like making me pick my favorite kid because these 3 games would have won Game of the Year a lot of recent years. All 3 of them.
See, I can pick my favorite kid though.
Well, why don't you discuss with us, Derek? Discuss these games. How do you feel?
All right, well, listen, I've got 7 kids, so I've got a top 3. I'm just saying.
So, I mean, it's well, we all know Final Fantasy is not going to win for me.
Favorite,
No. So it's really between the two, which I've talked about in previous, well, even these Game of the Year shows whenever I talk about these two. No, I'm playing Final Fantasy VII, actually. So, because I just wanted to see it on PS5. I actually hadn't checked it out yet.
Huh. You're being serious. You're playing.
There's been no updates.
No, I just want to, because I do really have a dislike for this game, and so I was trying to see if it was just me being an ass, or if I now know why I dislike it. All right, so for me, it's pretty easy that it's The Last of Us Part 2. Like, as much as I love Ghost of Tsushima, and I said this before, I think a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years down the road, I'm going to return to, I still go to it, but I'm going to return to it for a second, third, maybe even playthrough. And I'll probably end up going, dude, this game's so good. Because I would agree with Tim as far as it really doesn't do anything wrong. And there was never really a part of the game where I was like, oh my God, like, do we have to do this right now? It's kind of like, well, I was going to say Valhalla, but only when I'm in England. It's like when I'm in England in Valhalla, and that's the bulk of the game, that's why I'm saying this, there's nothing the game does wrong. I think it's beautiful. I like the story. I like the gameplay. That's how I feel about Ghost of Tsushima, except there is no parts outside of England. It stays in that spot, and it stays that way the whole game. So it should be my number one. But when I just think about the game I enjoy the most, and I am going to use the word fun, I have the most fun with The Last of Us Part 2. Story-wise, it's good. Like, no, I never got emotional. I feel like how Tim said, like, hey, I just needed to know. Definitely, on my first playthrough, what got me through that second half of the game was I must know what happened at the end of that first, because they did a great job of blacking out right when you're like, what? How did that happen? Or what's going to happen? So it was very much a mystery I needed solved and I needed to understand. But that second playthrough, which was more fun than the first playthrough, even though I knew everything story-wise, was just fun because it's fun to play. Like, it's my style of game. Yes, I'm not a stealth guy, but this is the type of stealth that I am. This is the type of stealth that I like, and
this is like fast-paced, brutal.
Yeah,
stuff,
this is where you don't have to be overly patient. You can be. You don't have to be overly patient.
It's
if you screw up,
just stealth.
If you screw up, the game doesn't go, you failed. It goes, okay, you can still get through this. You just made it harder on yourself.
Well, it depends. If you're with a clicker, it might say, you failed. Just depends.
Yeah. But for me, this game is easily my favorite for this year. And as much as I like Ghost of Tsushima, I just feel like this game nailed everything. Like, every part was perfect, and it's the one on my PS5 that I'm waiting for the update the most. Like, as much as I thought God of War was cool to have an update, in fact, God of War just kind of hyped me more for The Last of Us 2, and The Last of Us 2's update's actually supposed to be better because it's supposed to have ray tracing and all that stuff. But that's the game that I want to experience again. Not Ghost of Tsushima, definitely not Final Fantasy VII. I want to go back for a third playthrough of The Last of Us Part 2.
Actually, now that you mention it, I wonder if the fun really kicks in on the second playthrough because you've already experienced it and encountered.
Yeah, you're not so nervous about what's going to happen.
Yeah. The first time, I wouldn't say it was like grueling. Like, I never felt like
it felt like that for me in the first half more than the second half, for sure.
But well, in the second half, the character, whatever, spoiling it a little bit, the character you use is definitely more brutal, and you can play the game more aggressively than the first character in the first half.
We did talk about last week how there's like a switch. We just didn't specify any names or anything.
Yeah.
We just said there's a... Yeah.
And most people that are watching Game of the Year stuff, they know spoilers are going to happen. But so, anyways, for me, like, it does, especially when you're leveling up and all that stuff. And I think my characters are all maxed out. Like, I think I leveled everything up as far as guns. Like, every single gun is completely leveled up. So anytime I play it, if I play it on normal, it's like super easy mode, which that for some people that's like, that's not fun. But it's like playing The Last of Us Part Doom. I mean, you're just going in and blowing people away.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even have to stealth.
No stealth. Just a shooter at that point.
You have full auto, just go off on these people.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, for me, that's my number
fun.
one. Ghost of Tsushima's number 2, and then Final Fantasy VII Remake's a distant, as far as you can get away from that second place, third.
I still don't think I can understand what you don't like about it.
You still haven't actually explained what your beef is with Remake.
But Dan, is there kind of a summary you want to give that we didn't touch on with story or other stuff with Final Fantasy? I'd love to hear that.
There is, but I want to know what Derek's beef is with 7 Remake.
Yeah, like what specifically he doesn't like. Is it characters?
Well, I don't
is
think
it
it's
visuals?
I don't think it's that fun. I'm back in here playing it, right? The combat's not terrible, but it's not that fun. And then the other thing is it feels like an old game. So yes, I know they modernized it and they completely redid it, but like just the way the levels are done, even the enemies, how like freaking generic they are. Like these guys I'm beating up. That's how I felt the whole game.
Generic?
Yeah, generic.
The monster designs are okay, that's fine.
Well, I'm not playing against the monster right now. But well, and I also said when I was talking about it before, I don't know if it was in the combat one or whatever, like fighting the house, that's a boss battle. Like that felt like they were just trying really hard.
That's like a jokey homage to the original version.
That's a legit enemy from the old game.
I understand. And Daniel, I know you love the game, so you want to try to explain why I don't understand why I dislike it, but I do understand why I dislike it. I just don't like it. It's not a terrible game. Like It's not in my top 10. I think I put it in my top 15. So I did a top 10, and then I did like, here's a few honorable mentions. I think Final Fantasy VII's in that. But it's
Derek, what you're saying reminds me a lot of how I feel about Cyberpunk. It's not like I can't objectively say it's bad at all, and I'm enjoying elements of it, but I'm just not having a ton of fun with it. I understand that there's sometimes an X factor that just doesn't hit. I get it.
Yeah, that's why, like, if I really thought this game was complete and utter trash, I'm not letting you guys put it in the top 3. I'm going to tell you, like, I'm on the show. I'm saying this is a terrible game. You cannot put this in the top 3. It can be in your top 10, but it has to be lower because I'm objecting. But I'm fine with it being in the top 3. It's obviously not mine, which I've said 5,000 times, but I'm not fighting against 6, you guys putting up there. Well, yeah, 6,000.
I mean, but again, it like referring to a past conversation I think Jeff and Kyle were on, where you said you like 15 more because I think it's a little more straight up action combat, as opposed to this game being, it is a hybrid of turn-based and action. Like it's a good balance of both, because it's not just straight up an action game with like RPG elements. Like, again, there's an ATB meter. There are abilities that you can only use once you've built up that meter, and there's 2 sections to that meter. So some abilities you need both sections or one section. So there's a level of strategy there where I think in 15 there was some strategy maybe with like placement, like if like depending on where you are, because then you're dodging enemies. There was a decent amount of enemies on the screen, but
with 15 was more frantic. I thought 15 wasn't quite as. I never felt quite as in control.
But I think I said the reason I like 15 more is I like the characters a lot, but I like the world. I thought the open world of Final Fantasy 15 was great.
Yeah, it is actually pretty cool. I like that aspect.
I played it more. I mean, I played it obviously to beat the story and stuff like that, but I ended up playing a lot of it as like just a monster hunter. Like I put so many hours. I mean, I got the platinum in it. Put so many hours just hunting monsters.
Their hunts were fun. Yeah, their hunts were fun. Yeah.
And I enjoyed leveling up and all this stuff. I didn't have fun leveling up in this and upgrading in this game. I didn't really like how they did the story. I understood. And again, I supported the whole parts thing. I even said, like, this game's being put in parts because they're going to flesh out the story more. That's awesome. And I don't think they did a terrible job with that. But I also do think there are parts of it where I'm like, seriously, this is just dumb. Like,
I think it had an amazing finale.
But I will say the ending was really well done.
Well, that's the thing, and I know you're saying there's parts of the story you were like, well, what the hell? And again, like every single part of that game isn't like 10 out of 10 for me either. There's definitely just like Johnny, they kind of just fleshed out just to kind of have him be like an extra, like have him be more fleshed out, because clearly there's gonna be some additional stuff in the future. Or Roach, for example, who's a completely original character. He wasn't in the original Final Fantasy VII. So things like that can kind of be hit or miss, because like maybe it feels a bit disjointed because it wasn't even actually there to begin with in the original game. And a lot of the game does have the vibes of the original, just like kind of with more production, and there's the voice acting, and you know, the combat is different, and you can literally look straight up and see the top plates above you, because you're down in the slums back on, you know, the original Final Fantasy VII. It was all pre-rendered. You were just seeing what was around you, because you couldn't move the camera. So
see, here's how I've seen it, and I'm not saying this is 100% accurate, but I'm just saying I'm in a lot of groups. I follow games media. Most people that absolutely love this game and want it to be game of the year and blah, 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 they have nostalgia. So just like the way people were like, you know, people only like Zelda Breath of the Wild because of nostalgia. I'm not going to be that jerk and say that, but I think a lot of the reason why this gets a lot of praise is because most people that are experiencing this game are going, oh, let me compare it to how my experience from one of the greatest games ever, Final Fantasy VII. And they're going, wow, they improved it. So it's automatically not perfect game, but an absolutely amazing game.
It depends on
somebody like me who played Final Fantasy VII, never beat it because I wasn't drawn into it, wasn't sucked into the characters or the world or anything, thought it was okay, but didn't like obsess over it. Went into it and I was actually excited to play this one. I liked the demo, bought the game, played it on day one, played it straight through. I think I took one break because I was like, okay, this is annoying. Like after like 15, 20 hours, whatever I was in, and then came back to it and finished it. But I don't know if Tim remembers this. I struggled through that game. The last second half of the game, I was like, oh my God, I cannot stand this game. I'm just beating it just to finish it.
Yeah, I think the four of us actually talked about this game last spring, right? Wasn't it the four of us who chatted about this? And so these are a lot of the things you said then too, and it doesn't surprise me to hear you saying them now. Yeah. But in order to wrap this up with some kind of reasonable time frame here, Dan, I want to throw it to you, and then also Jeff. Any of these three that you want to speak about? I'm not going to assume anything you want to say about any of them, because you've heard from Derek what his top three is. You've heard from me how I'm ranking mine. Dan, where are you landing, and any last case to make?
I mean, obviously my pick is 7 Remake, but like I said last week with like the story, like Last of Us 2 is very close. Like it's not like it's like Final Fantasy 7 Remake is like 10 out of 10 and then Last of Us is like an 8. Like it's like 9.9 versus 10 out of 10. Like it's super close. And so is Ghost, to be honest. It's just, again, like I mentioned with the story, like 7 Remake, and like Derek, I get like you go in groups and people are like, oh, nostalgia, and I get that, maybe that is the case, but when you're a really big fan of something, if they're gonna remake it, like I think you're gonna be the most critical because you're such a fan of it. I mean, the original 7 is my favorite game of all time. So if I'm gonna be mature about it and try to be objective,
it depends on the personality of the person. I get what you're saying.
That's fine. But
some
for
people
me,
might, but some people they'll just.
But I think
like,
there's more people.
Perfect.
I think there's more people than you think that are trying to be objective and say, well, this is my favorite series and you're about to remake my favorite. I mean, look how many people were complaining about it, right? Oh, you're breaking it up into parts. Oh, you're adding new story. Oh, the combat is action now. Like, what do you do? Like, people were furious because they hadn't actually touched it yet. They didn't have anything tangible. So they just everything was just emotions. Everything was just emotions, right? And then you get the game and you experience it. And for me,
I was the opposite. So I defended it without seeing it. Then when I played it, I was like, it's okay.
Yeah. And I'm the opposite. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future because there's still more parts. So everything that happens in this game, a lot of it is theories, and some of those theories have been confirmed, or if you really just kind of stare at it and kind of make sense of it, you can already kind of see where they are going potentially. But they could also just be kind of throwing you through a loop, and maybe they'll do something else. But that's what's interesting about it, is they're adding all these new story beats, and they're adding like these twists, and incorporating some of the previous lore.
Story's good, and we talked about that last week too. But here's to me the knock on Final Fantasy VII. So you just described your, how it's like 10 versus 9.9. I'm kind of the same way. To me, like Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost are both 10 out of 10 for me personally. Like other than nitpicks to try to rank them, I don't really have any negatives against them. I'm just trying to rank certain elements. So
I feel the same way.
I actually don't dislike any of the gameplay of Last of Us Part 2 or any of the story of Ghost. I just feel like, all right, if I had to pick one over the other, this is how I'd rank it.
So like
when it comes to Final Fantasy VII, there is a weakness that I feel like I experience, especially towards the end of the game as more of the areas are opened up. And that's the way you travel and the way that you move around the world. Some of the fast travel stuff they implement is fine. Still not great. But there were so many times when I just needed to go get an item I couldn't get to before or whatever. And some of the movement around the environments, again, this is a nitpick because this game was like a 9.7 or something for me. It's really close to that 10.10 range. Some of the movement, if I'm nitpicking, started to frustrate me after a while. I'm backtracking a lot, and he has to turn sideways to slowly scoot through areas to allow the game to render. I get why they're doing it.
Yeah.
But it starts to wear on you when you're backtracking and trying to find secrets a lot. That's all. Sure. That's my one nitpick about the game. I feel like the environment just wasn't as fun to explore, even though they made you explore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it was a kind of a visual I was going to say a visual feast, but like, to be honest, like some environments are blurry, like the door, like everyone just kept memeing about the door.
But door, that's right. Yeah.
But like that first shot that you get when you're looking up at the plate, like at nighttime, when Tifa is showing you to like your kind of like temporary residents.
So cool. Yeah.
Just like that shot is amazing. But yeah, like the parts where you're scooting through things, they absolutely did that way too many times. I don't know why they did that so many times. That was silly.
I mean, it's a nitpick because I didn't throw my controller and say I've had enough of these. Like it was just like a small thing.
I think it's a couple of things. I think it's because they really didn't have a full like 5 years of development themselves. Because again, remember sort of all the stuff that was happening behind the scenes. They brought it in house. I think they had about 2.5, maybe 3 years to work on the game. So if they had a full like 5, maybe 6 years, then it definitely would have been maybe a bit more fleshed out, a bit more fluid. But also when you play the original Midgar section, which was much shorter, it did feel kind of restrained. Like it wasn't open. You're in this like city where there's these 2 levels. There's like the slums and then there's the top plate, but you never even got to go to the top plate. Like it was linear. And then it basically, when you left that area, it's like, whoa, here's the open world. Like the Midgar section in the original game is completely different from the entire rest of the game. And I think almost like they chose to.
So you expected linearity and got even more openness than you expected. I get that. Yeah.
And I think it actually works. And I theorized, I think on one of our previous episodes where I mentioned, like, I think they really specifically wanted to focus on Midgar also because of the tech restraints. I think once they got to like, all right, we're going to make part 2 now. We're on newer consoles, stronger PCs. Like we can maybe try to make this open world. Whatever they decide doing with the open world, we still don't know.
Okay, but the issue I have with that is that they incentivize you to explore, but not every experience of exploring is fun. I just wanted to get an item or find a thing. So that's, again, my nitpick of this game is that they incentivize you and encourage you, and oftentimes open it up for you to go explore, and yet it's not the experience of exploring is definitely not a strength of this game. Strength, story, characters, visuals, combat, it's all great. Exploration is one of its weaker elements, and I feel like the game designers still tell you throughout the game they want you to explore. And I didn't find that part.
I think that usually can be stronger when it is more of an open world, like kind of like go finding some secret cave and be like, oh, what's in this cave? And you find some cool, super rare, strong, powerful weapon or something, for example. And there isn't so much of that here because, again, it's a bit more linear. You're in this like city that is very sort of enclosed and kind of separate from the rest of the world. But,
Yeah. So. I gotcha. Three amazing games. Jeff, any other thoughts on these 3 before we cast votes on these?
No, I agree with your point about the exploration, actually. As you were saying it, there was something I couldn't pinpoint about 7 Remake that made it for sure number 3 and couldn't go any higher on my list. And I think that was it, where it was like encouraging you to explore, but every time you did, you're like, oh, it's just like one small area. Why am I here?
I'm okay with the linear game being linear.
Yeah, that's cool with me.
Game
and I still really love the game, so I mean, it's not like it's a big knock on it or something.
Oh, it's such a small knock for me personally. I enjoyed it so much. I didn't mind the backtracking, and I didn't mind the let's watch him slowly shift sideways and sidle through. That didn't really bother me because I was enjoying so much of the game so much. So.
That's me.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. Yeah, a little bit of this sideways. So okay,
fine for some parts, but then you do it like 30 times. It's like, well, I mean,
yeah.
Especially when you have to go back and forth and be like, all right, I'll be right back, and then you have to.
If you were to have asked me in January of 2020 my top 3, I probably would have guessed Last of Us Part 2 was in there.
Yeah, same.
I probably would have hoped Ghost would make it because I had no idea if they could make a good game like that. Turns out they can. And I would have thought Final Fantasy VII Remake was going to land in my top 10, maybe not super high. I probably would have told you it's going to be the new Assassin's Creed or Cyberpunk or something. Like it'll be a shoe-in like that. Yeah. So the fact that this is even in the conversation against these other 2, I know it's not much consolation knowing it's probably going to end at number 3. I mean, to me, that's a big deal. I
wasn't even going to play it. So the fact that it's my number 3 at all is kind of amazing. And I expected at the end of the year for Cyberpunk to be like my easy number 1. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So it's a shoe in number 1, right? But it didn't end up. I don't know. I just didn't end up feeling that way about the game.
Yeah, I thought Cyberpunk would be higher up for me, even my personal list.
Yeah.
So I'm voting Ghost number 1, Last of Us Part 2 number 2, and Final Fantasy VII number 3. Derek, what are you voting?
Last of Us, Ghost, then Final Fantasy.
Dan?
So 7 remake, and then Last of Us, and then Ghost. All very close though.
Jeff, don't do the math. Just vote for with your heart. Go.
With my heart, I mean, you made great points about Sush. God, so it changes every day. So today it's Tsushima, then Last of Us, then remake.
It would have been easier if you would have said Last of Us for the math.
Probably.
Because now we have a tie at the top.
Ugh.
And if you went just based tied? On, if you go based on Metacritic and our community voting, and I think what Kyle would pick, would it be Last of Us Part 2? No, you know what? He was a Ghost guy, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, he had Ghost at number 1. Then he beat Last of Us Part 2, but we never discussed which one he preferred.
So Metacritic,
I assume we were going to reserve that for this.
Metacritic and the community had Last of Us by a fairly significant margin higher than Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's
the way... They did underrate Tsushima, though. I mean, at least the Metacritic did. So I don't know.
They did. I agree. I just feel like Last of Us... And we go back to Derek's thought, too, of how many number 1 votes it got. It's the same. No. Is it the same? I don't know. I'm losing my ability to think clearly here.
Well, yours was Ghost number 1, and
Ghost.
You and I voted for Ghost number 1.
Okay, yeah. If we're gonna stick with that methodology, then Ghost was number 1 because we got 2 number 1s, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to give somebody an imaginary vote who's not even here. Absentee voting.
Kyle probably would pick Ghost, barely.
Rigged,
right?
But yeah, Kyle would probably, even though he said he loved the way Last of Us Part 2 wrapped up and he can't understand any of the hate and stuff like that, I do still feel like Tsushima, because he loves the samurai stuff.
I mean, it's a close one. This is basically a tie, but if we had to give it a tiebreaker, there's a number of different things we could point at. Barely gives the edge in our voting for our purposes to Ghost.
Yeah, if we wanted to use a Spider-Man logic, which only makes sense.
I think so. Because, again, it's based on our debate, our crew right here that are here talking for these many weeks about our favorite games.
Yeah, we deserve our own 10 list, dang it.
Well, how would Jeff feel about it? Jeff Keighley. I mean, would he agree with us?
He would want Death Stranding to win.
He would want Hades. I can't do a Jeff impression.
Hades.
All right, here's our top 10. I think this is a really good list. I'm happy with it when you think about all the different opinions that are represented here. But number 10 is Resident Evil 3. Number 9 is Hades. Number 8 is Yakuza Like a Dragon. Number 7 is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Number 6 is Cyberpunk 2077. Number 5 is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Number 4, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Number 3, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Number 2, Last of Us Part 2. And number 1 is Ghosts of Tsushima. I think it's fair to say that Sony killed it this year.
I was going to say, do you want to just change their name to Ponycast?
Yeah, that's what it should be. I think it is fair to say. Let me give you the results of a couple things, and we'll close out with you guys if you want to. I'd be curious to hear your personal top 10 list, even if it's not the same next week. That's fine, what it is right now, or maybe top 5, whatever. But community voting was really interesting. I had people pick their top 3 games, and so we did a similar tally to what you just saw here. 3 points for number 1, 2 points for number 2, and 1 point for number 3. And those votes tallied up, and by a pretty big margin, number 1 was Cyberpunk 2077 was the community pick as favorite game. I do think there's some recency bias there, to be honest with you. When you vote, a lot of times there's some recency bias there, and it also did get the most first place votes. Then after that, it was pretty freaking close between Ghost and Last of Us Part 2. And Ghost was second. Last of Us Part 2 was third. Assassin's Creed Valhalla was fourth. And Doom Eternal was fifth. So there you go. There was the community vote.
Bunch of casuals.
I know. Dirty and filthy.
Yep.
I'll give you my personal top list, and I've kind of given bits and pieces of it as we ranked stuff here. But if I'm starting at number 10, let's see, Cyberpunk 2077 is at number 10 at the moment. I do feel like it's going to move up when I wrap up the story. I think I'll like it a little more. And then Yakuza Like a Dragon, number 9. Haven's number 8. Spiritfarer is number 7. Hades is number 6. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is number 5. Ori is number 4. And then 7 Remake, Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima. My top 3. Kind of similar to this top 3. Dan, what's yours?
I don't know if I have like a full 10. Like I'd have to really.
Give us a 5 or something.
Think and sit, but like top 3 is pretty much what I had listed. 7 remake, and then Last of Us, and then Ghost. It's all very close.
And then after that, is there a pretty big drop off for the rest of them?
I mean, it probably would then be honestly what this list here is down to Cyberpunk, and then I'd have to like maybe then like Resident Evil after that.
Yeah. Okay.
And I haven't played Hades or Yakuza, and then Assassin's Creed.
Okay. So. Derek, what's yours looking like?
Do Jeff's, and then I'll come back. I'm just gonna take a picture of it because I'm on a different computer. It's annoying.
Okay.
Oh.
Jeff, what's your top?
I literally just changed it because it always changes. So my number 10 is Spiritfarer. I said that Pathless was in my 10, but that's because I didn't consider there's a remake in here that we didn't consider for this list. Anyway, my number 10 is Spiritfarer, number 9 Cyberpunk, number 8 Pedestrian, number 7 is Dreams. I loved it. Loved what it brought to the table. Number 6 is Yakuza, number 5 is Mafia.
Yeah.
Number 4 is Miles Morales, then 3 Final Fantasy. It's basically the same top 4.
Yeah.
Same top 4. Right. Final Fantasy is 3 and Last of Us 2 is number Ghost 2, and Ghost is number 1. Yeah.
Derek, what's yours?
All right, so 10's Miles Morales, 9 is Final Fantasy 7, so it actually beat out a game. You guys should be happy about that.
Whoa.
8 is Immortals, 7 is Mortal Shells, 6 is Watch Dogs, 5 is Ori, 4 is Cyberpunk, 3 is Assassin's Creed, 2 is Ghost, 1 is The Last of Us, and then I do have 5 like games that I think would actually, well, a couple of them have the chance to creep into the top 10 if like I play them and beat them. That's Neo 2, Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, Demon Souls Remastered, and then I have Resident Evil 3 and Godfall, which those 2 wouldn't move up, but they would fall into the 14th and 15th spot.
More like trash fall.
Well, Godfall was actually 11. That was what I was moving because I was like, after going back and playing it, I dropped it from 11 to 15.
Yeah.
Like, nope.
Yeah.
Notice no Crash Bandicoot or Doom Eternal.
Yeah, how about that?
How about that? What do you got to say about that, Gaston?
That's because he's probably the only one who will listen.
A lot.
He'll be the only one who listens
Monday morning.
Yeah, he's probably the only one who listens all the way to the end. We love that guy.
Can I go ahead and announce the best RPG of 2020?
Please, yeah. Oh, we have one last category. Only Dan gets the vote. Dan, best RPG of 2020, please.
Yakuza.
Animal Crossing. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God.
7 remake, obviously.
There you go. Number 1.
Like I said last week.
Each one number 1.
I truly think that game is a gift. I know Derek doesn't think so. Many of us were skeptical, and I think they did an excellent job considering their track record the past 10, 15 years, closer to 15 years.
Dude, you heard all the negative that Derek said, and he still had it as number 9 of his favorite overall.
Yeah.
I honestly think that says something. Someone who didn't enjoy it, but still has to acknowledge like it's really good. So
it's true.
It is what it is.
I just think there's a lot of potential there. Hopefully they don't mess it up because they got something really good going. And again, people are still
really high.
People are still talking about it, theorizing, discussing what's going to happen. So,
all right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, Jeff, and I'll thank you on behalf of Kyle as well. Or no, I'll thank you and Kyle who's not here. Anyway, thank you both for giving up a lot of time the last couple of weeks to do this. This has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it, and we're gonna get back to some normal.
Check in the mail.
Yeah, the check is definitely in the mail. Keep an eye out for that.
Biden's going to sign off on that for it. Biden will send it to you. Don't worry.
Check it every day. We're going to get back to our normal cadence of talking about various issues and latest headlines and all that kind of stuff. We'll do some fun segments and stuff coming up. So we'll give you all a break from our opinions and rankings and all that stuff.
Man, you guys have so many games to talk about from the beginning of the year onward.
Yeah, we've only barely touched on them, like the Mario and Hitman 3 and Medium. We didn't really dig into any of those yet.
Did we even
Little Nightmares 2 is great.
Did we even discuss Resident Evil 8 and the remake.
We just talked about it briefly before one
demo.
of the episodes.
There was
just
the demo
brief.
also.
Yeah. That'll be next week's show. We'll talk about the first part of this year.
Yeah, and we'll also do most anticipated, but we'll get
Yeah,
there.
I was gonna say, and then we have preview
when we get
for
there.
March.
But again, thank you all again. If you're listening,
Mass Effect is my most anticipated. Sorry,
we'd love if you would take time to give us a rating or review. Maybe share us with someone who you think would like another video game podcast in their lives, or maybe they need to dump.
Had to do this in the beginning of the show. Nobody got here. Nobody.
Thanks for your.
You can literally insult every possible listener. Like, just call them terrible names, and not one of them would know.
Literally, all podcasts do it this way. Do you not?
Talk to you next week. Bye.